Chapter 51. Could this be considered an array formation? Yen Li explained the basic theory of formations in the first class. In the end, she personally tested 2 weak spirit-gathering formations on the podium. This piqued the curiosity of many. Qing Xian was also lost in thought. On the other hand, Long Chen's soul had already flown out of his body. His thoughts were focused on the royal school's identity token. There were also a few specially engraved arrays within the tokens, which recorded the various rules of the Royal Academy. The royal school was divided into 3 main areas. The central area was where the teaching buildings were located. Alchemy, formations, sword arts, movement techniques, and many other subjects were all taught here under the guidance of many famous teachers. The central area took up the largest area, with a series of towering teaching buildings on both the north and south sides, like a mountain range separating the east and west areas. As for the East District, it was a chain of mountain ranges, also known as the Broken Spirit Mountain Range. It was the training ground for many of the royal school's disciples. On the other side was the Western District. This was the challenge area, also known as the chaotic battlefield. So it's like this. Although the Royal Academy is a place where the royal family and nobles reside, the rules are not corrupt. Using points to exchange for cultivation resources and martial skills is reasonable and fair. Everyone starts with 1,000 points. Apart from a few compulsory public courses, all other courses require points and an Identity Jade token. Beginner Royal Academy students will be given 1,000 points every month. Students of the same level can challenge each other as they wish. If you refuse, you will have to pay 500 points. If you don't have any points, it means that you have to accept the challenge. Intermediate Royal Academy students can only challenge 5 times a month. Advanced Royal Academy students can challenge 10 times. If you want to challenge an unlimited number of times and obtain points, you will be able to enter the Western Region Battlegrounds. Long Chen's eyes lit up. Since points were equivalent to resources, the fastest way to obtain points was to obtain resources. Challenge. Only by challenging would he be able to accumulate points as quickly as possible. Long Chun couldn't help but shake his head and laugh when he thought of the scene on the battle stage in Iron Mountain City. However, Yen Li, who was holding a ruler on the battle stage, saw this scene and immediately became angry. Long Chun had been pretending to be asleep, but now he was laughing for no reason. You're a new student, and this is an array formation class. Looks like there's a need to make an example out of you. Yen Li's beautiful eyes flashed, and she said mischievously in her heart, "This student, do you have a problem with the wind condensation array that I just mentioned?" Yen Li stared at Long Chun and asked in a deep voice. The gazes of the surrounding people all fell onto Long Chun, secretly thinking that Long Chun was going to be unlucky. Yen Li's hot body could be said to be the best amongst the academy's teachers. If it wasn't for the fact that she was known to be a pervert, there probably wouldn't even be a place for her to stand in the classroom. Long Chun finally regained his senses and saw that everyone was waiting to see him make a fool of himself. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. He didn't expect that he would be caught in a moment of distraction. I do have some opinions. Long Chin thought that this array formation class was a complete waste of time. He might as well find an excuse to leave. F***CK. He's got character. He's challenging teacher Yen Li's authority. This new student isn't dressed very well, but he sure has guts. The wind condensation array is used to inscribe on weapons to increase the weapon's speed and reduce its weight. It is one of the most commonly used arrays today. Teacher, how can you be wrong to learn from Oyezi? Everyone gave Long Chun a thumbs up, but Zheng Fong, who was standing beside Long Chun, frowned. Grandpa asked this guy to take care of me. It can't be that he wants to matchmake us together, right? No, I must think of a way to stop him from having such thoughts. In her heart, she even thought that Long Chun was trying to attract his attention. On the podium, Yen Li's serious face revealed a smile and said, "Then tell me what's wrong with the wind condensation array that I spoke of." Long Chun nodded. After a moment of silence, he stared at Yen Li and asked, "Sorry, I didn't listen to the lesson you just taught. Can you repeat it again?" The surrounding people were immediately stunned. You didn't even listen to the lesson, and you dare to directly say that you have an opinion? Yanli clenched her teeth. She secretly thought that Long Chun had to be taught a lesson. She said fiercely, "Then I'll repeat it for you. I like to see what you can say." The wind condensation array uses 9 wind patterns as its foundation. The 9 wind patterns are vertical and horizontal, and the place where they intersect is the eye of the array. Spirit stones can be placed to increase the effect of the wind condensation array. The wind condensation array focuses on speed and is supplemented by firmness and fierceness. Therefore, the array is mixed with force patterns. After a round of explanation, Yinli could almost recite it backwards. Those who had a little understanding of arrays knew that Yin Li's description of the wind condensation array was almost meticulous. It could be said that she was striving for perfection. Unfortunately, the more Long Chun listened, the more he shook his head. The moment Yin Li's voice stopped, he couldn't help but shout, "This is called the wind condensation array? It's **T. Plop." As soon as he said this, several people who turned around to see how Long Chun would explain were so shocked that they slid down from their seats to the ground. **T? This was the only array teacher in the royal school. He was also the last disciple of the Black Dragon Empire's array grandmaster, Oyezi. Almost all the arrays in the Empire's army came from Oyezi's guidance. Is this guy all right? Isn't the wind condensation array just like this? Don't tell me there are other wind condensation arrays. This guy isn't afraid that the wind will cut his tongue. Oyezi is an array grandmaster. With his status, all the big empires have to be courteous to him. Even the current emperor has to give him some face. How can there be a problem with an array that he has already appraised? You're young, but you talk big. If you don't explain yourself today, you'll be guarding the door until you graduate. Yinli was so angry that her body trembled. In Long Chen's mind, memories of the wind condensation array surged like a tidal wave. He immediately stood up and said, "This is obviously a cross between the light sword array and the gravity array. How can it be called the wind condensation array? Based on speed? That's a sword technique, not an array. The wind condensation array is called the wind condensation array. In reality, it uses the power of the array to generate wind, using the wind patterns to gather the surrounding wind. How can it be called the wind condensation array? Using strength as a supplement? A good wind condensation array has turned into a hodgepodge of array. You're not talking about the wind condensation array. Wouldn't it be better to call it the wind gathering sword array?" Long Chen's voice became louder and louder. It was as if he had turned into an unparalleled expert in the Tao of arrays. His words unnaturally revealed a kind of commanding spirit. The surrounding people were all stunned by Long Chen's words. After a long while, they regained their senses. After thinking about it carefully, they actually felt that what Long Chen said was quite reasonable. After Long Chen finished speaking, he saw that even Yin Li on the stage seemed to be stunned on the spot and fell in a deep thought. He directly pulled up his Qing Xian and dashed out. Long Chen thought to himself, "In the future, I'll just skip this array and alchemy class." Chapter 52. Sword Formation. In the array formation classroom, everyone was in a mess. Once Yin Li left, no one was willing to stay in the classroom any longer. Li Yuan walked to Zheng Feng's side and joked, "Hey, do you think that Long Chun is really an array formation master? What he said just now sounded like something like that. If that's really the case, I think you should just go along with him, haha." Zheng Feng immediately stretched out her hand and pinched Li Yuan's waist. She cried out, "I think he's just talking nonsense, or maybe he's read some strange books. Nowadays, the Tao of formations is almost extinct. What's left are only some small weapon formations. Even a formation grandmaster like Oyezi is said to only be able to set up a 6th grade spirit rank formation. If he's really an array formation master, why don't you hurry up and marry him?" The two of them joked around and walked out. After Yin Li left the classroom, she chased after Long Chun and stopped him in less than 100 meters. Her chest heaved up and down as she anxiously asked, "Then in your opinion, how should I set up the wind condensation array?" Long Chun held on to Qing Xian's hand and stood in place as he listened. He thought to himself that if he didn't make things clear today, he wouldn't be able to leave. The The students who were walking out from afar also saw the three of them from afar. One by one, they noisily walked over, wanting to see what would happen next. Zheng Fang and Li Yuan also walked over. Zheng Fang frowned and walked to Long Chen's side, reminding him, "Hurry up and apologize to Master Yin Li. Don't talk nonsense anymore." In Zheng Fang's eyes, Long Chen was introduced by her grandfather, so she naturally had to take care of him. If Long Chen really provoked Yin Li and made him guard the door until he graduated, he would lose all his face. Long Chen stared at Zheng Fang and frowned, but didn't say anything. He only looked at Yin Li and said, "How about this? Today I'll teach you how to set up the wind condensation array, but after that, I can skip all your array formation classes." Although they could choose not to attend the compulsory classes set by the royal school, they would have to pay a penalty of 200 points per class. Yin Li agreed without a second word, because she had once heard her honored master, Oyezi, personally say, "Nowadays, the Tao of formations is declining and is even inferior to the Tao of pills. Even the 5 great sects have already completely given up on the path of formations. Many of the formations in my hands have been modified. For example, this wind condensation formation was originally used by the Black Dragon Empire and was extremely incomplete, so I added many changes to it." In other words, just as Long Chen had said, the wind condensation array that she had mentioned was not the original wind condensation array, but the array pattern that her master had modified to cater to the army. When Zheng Fang saw that Long Chen still didn't know when to back down, she wanted to remind him again. However, a cold light suddenly appeared, causing her to involuntarily take a few steps back. She saw that Long Chen's right hand was holding the purple veined sword casually and immediately stared at Yin Li and said, "Watch carefully, I will only draw it once." Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what Long Chen was going to do, but in the next moment, everyone's eyes widened. They saw Long Chen's sword move from top to bottom, as if he was drawing on the grass with the tip of a brush. Wong Wong. As Long Chen's hand moved faster and faster, Yin Li's beautiful eyes became more and more serious. Under the tight clothes, her curvaceous body couldn't help but tremble slightly. After less than 10 breaths, Long Chen suddenly withdrew his sword, and a gust of wind actually appeared out of thin air from bottom to top, sweeping up the sky full of flying grass for more than 10 meters before dissipating with a loud bang. This wind from bottom to top, what's going on? Is this the wind condensation array, generating wind out of thin air, using the formation to generate the power of a gale? For a moment, everyone cried out in surprise. They felt that this move of Long Chen's was brilliant, and some even had a completely new understanding of the formation Tao. They felt that if they could really set up countless formation Tao, then wouldn't they be able to control the power of heaven and earth? And in an instant, wind and thunder converged. Yin Li stood at the bottom of his eyes and also cried out involuntarily, "This is the true wind condensation array." Long Chen shook his head incessantly, inwardly thinking that the formation Tao had truly withered. This wind condensation array was practically the most basic formation Tao, far inferior to the spirit fusion array he set up on the Qing Gangsor a few days ago. This kind of basic formation Tao could rely on a dominator-level divine sense to be almost at his fingertips. It had to be said that a powerful divine sense had the greatest benefits for formation Tao and pill refining. Otherwise, even with the inheritance in his body, Long Chen wouldn't be able to master it so quickly and grasp the precision in actual operation. Just as Long Chen was about to leave with Qing Xian, a burst of hurried footsteps came from afar. "It's that brat. Surround him for me." Long Chen's footsteps paused, only to see the frivolous and Qing Xian Xie Fei, who had just entered the door, walk over with 3 youths, quickly blocking his path. Xie Fei's appearance immediately caused the surrounding people to recover from their shock. After a moment of excitement, there were some people who believed that Long Chen had only obtained this formation Tao by chance. After all, the formation Tao was only a small Tao. Xie Fei, didn't this guy get punished to guard the door for 4 months last time because he stared at Yin Li's long legs? How did he incur the enmity of this new student? When I entered the door today, I seemed to have heard the discussion of the other guards. They said that CFA was directly sent flying by a person. It can't be him, right? Then this guy is in big trouble. Look, CFA brought a total of 3 people to challenge him. Looks like he's in for a hard time today. He just entered the door and has at most 1,000 points, so he can only reject 2 people's challenges. So what if he rejects them? They'll continue to challenge him in 10 days. I think it's better to just accept the challenge and endure it. At least he can't be challenged by the same person for 3 months. Long Chun narrowed his eyes and stared at the 3 people behind CFA. He thought to himself, I was still thinking about how to get more points, but now someone has come knocking on my door. Country bumpkin, if you kneel down and apologize to your grandfather right now, perhaps I'll let you go today. CFA stared at Long Chun with his head held high, arrogant and domineering. CFA himself wasn't very strong. This was something that almost all the junior students knew. However, CFA was able to become a local bully among the junior students because of Gong Sun Xing. Gong Sun Xing was a well-known figure and was the disciple of the Jinyuan general. He had even formed an alliance among the students called the Xing Alliance. The 3 people behind CFA were the disciples that the Xing Alliance had accepted from the junior students. Long Chun, how did you provoke CFA? Zheng Fong and Li Yuan's faces turned pale. They thought to themselves that the old man was asking them to take care of him. Without waiting for Long Chun to reply, Zheng Fong walked up and said to CFA, I have 3,000 points on my point plate. Take them all. Don't make things difficult for him today. Yinli couldn't help but walk up and stare at CFA. Long Chun is a new student. From today onwards, you don't have to be a guard anymore. Just let him go. The Imperial Academy didn't forbid students from the same year from challenging each other. Otherwise, they wouldn't have purposely set up the Western District as a chaotic duel zone. Chapter 53. Chapter 53, First Challenge on Long Chin's first day at the Royal School. He had already attracted a crowd of onlookers. CFA didn't expect that Zheng Fong and Yin Li, who had always been the strictest, would plead for mercy for Long Chun. However, when he recalled the punch in the morning, CFA sneered and said, Today, unless he kneels down and kowtows to me, this matter won't be over. I think you're a pretty good gatekeeper. At least you look like a dog. Long Chun stared at CFA and said calmly, Hiss. The surrounding people sighed. This Long Chun really wanted to die. He actually dared to provoke CFA with his words. CFA's face instantly darkened. He was the nephew of the Jinyuan general, and the Jinyuan general commanded a large number of troops in the imperial capital. He also had many disciples in the imperial college, so most people in the imperial college had to give him some face. He didn't think that Long Chun would dare to curse him in front of so many people. This made him feel an unprecedented humiliation. According to the Academy's rules, I, Qiu Qian, will challenge you today for 1,000 points. If you refuse, you'll have to hand over 500 points. As such, I will not be able to challenge you for the next 10 days. A young man standing behind CFA sneered when he saw that Long Chun didn't know when to back down. According to the rules of the Royal School, students were not prohibited from challenging each other. If one were to reject a challenge, one would have to pay 500 points. If one were to reject a challenge, the other party would not be able to challenge the same person within 10 days. Of course, they could also choose to accept the challenge. After all, it was forbidden for students to kill each other. After all, almost all of these people had some background. Once they accepted the challenge, no matter who won or lost, they would not be allowed to duel again for 3 months. However, if there were no points left and someone still challenged him, he would have to accept the challenge. The purpose of these rules was to encourage the students to increase their cultivation without harming their lives. It was a kind of behavior that the Academy encouraged. Qiu Qian entered the Royal College a few months ago. He is the son of a chiliarch under the Jinyuan general. He is only 20 years old, but he has already reached the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. Furthermore, he has mastered the transmutation blade technique and the battlefield movement technique. He is extremely difficult to deal with. The primeval saber technique is a level 6 spirit level martial skill. His body technique is also a level 5 spirit level martial skill. This Long Chun was obviously recruited from a remote place in the so-called Three Cities competition a few days ago. I'm afraid that he hasn't seen many spirit level martial skills. Even if he is at the level 4 spirit martial realm, I'm afraid that he will only be defeated. Everybody was shaking their heads and sighing. All the students of the Imperial University had come to the Imperial City. In the Imperial City, there were far more resources than in other cities. Cultivators who were 20 years old and had broken through to the third Ling Chi layer were considered average. With Xiao Qian's strength, his movement technique, and his saber technique to the great accomplishment stage, he would probably be able to compete for first place in the grand competition of the 3 cities in other cities. Although the people in front of them could see that Long Chun was the champion of the 3 cities competition, they did not care much. After all, he was only about 16 years old. Long Chun turned a deaf ear to everyone's words. He stared at Xiao Qian and said, "I accept your challenge, but I remember that the academy can increase the points of the bet by challenging each other." When Xiao Qian heard that Long Chun actually accepted the challenge, he was instantly stunned. And then he said with a strange expression, "You still want to increase the bet points?" Long Chun chuckled and said, "Why? You don't dare?" "Ha, I don't dare. Today, I'll bet however many points you have." Xiao Qian immediately laughed out loud. CFA sneered and said, "Country bumpkin, this is not some remote city. Idiot." Zheng Fang was also speechless. She only felt that Long Chun did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. This was the Imperial University. Although Xiao Qian had just entered the Imperial University, his cultivation was still considered average. He had a great advantage against people who had just entered the Imperial University. Zheng Fang was just about to say something to persuade him again when Long Chun walked to his side and said indifferently, "Lend me 3,000 points. When I win later, I'll give you half of it." Hearing Long Chun's words, the surrounding people were completely dumbfounded. How confident was this guy? Or was he just ignorant? Zheng Fang was also stunned. Li Yuan quickly pulled the corner of Zheng Fang's clothes and said, "The two of us have done 20 missions, and we only have 3,000 points each. You have to think carefully." In addition to challenging each other, there were many things in the Imperial University that could earn points, such as killing monsters and completing missions from the mission hall. Zheng Fang hesitated for a moment, but finally shook her head. She was still reluctant to part with the 3,000 points in her hands. Long Chun smiled bitterly and did not say anything. Originally, he thought that although Zheng Fang had a bit of a Missy's temper, she was not a bad person. Moreover, she was Elder Zhang's granddaughter. He wanted to let him earn some points to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Now that she did not agree, he naturally would not force her. Long Chun said and walked up to Xiao Qian. He was ready to say that he would only bet his own 1,000 points. "I have 3,000 points here for you, but no matter if you win or lose, you have to come to the Purple Jade restaurant tonight." No one would have thought that after Zheng Fang rejected him, Yinli would actually stand up and hand over the points jade from her waist to Long Chun. The teachers in the Imperial University also had points jade, but their points were fixed by the Imperial University. They could not rely on other methods to obtain points. As for how to use these points, it was naturally their own business. Long Chun stared at Yin Li with a little surprise. Finally, he took the points jade and transferred 3,000 points to his own jade. Seeing the value of the jade in his hand become 4,000, Long Chun could not help but smile slightly. However, he also knew that Yin Li's move was just to get the specific method of using the wind condensation array from him. 3,000 points was really not a lot, so he did not feel uncomfortable in his heart. "Well, I'll bet 4,000 points." Long Chun stared at Xiao Qian and said lightly. Xiao Qian stared at the points jade in Long Chun's hand. His face was a little red because of excitement. 4,000 points was not a small number. Xiao Qian immediately stepped forward and said with a smile, "Boy, let me see what cultivation you have. How dare you be so arrogant?" As Xiao Qian's voice fell, a long sword suddenly appeared at his right hand. Behind him, 3 dragon elephant illusions suddenly spread out. The primeval sword art was mainly firm and fierce, but it also had the meaning of accepting all rivers into the sea. Xiao Qian had practiced for many years and had already reached the realm of great accomplishment. When he used the sword, it looked as if it was weak like water, but in fact, it was firm and fierce. The sword slashed from left to right, bringing bursts of wild wind. This slash was close to 4,000 kilograms, comparable to the strength of the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm. Long Chun was slightly surprised. He secretly thought that the Imperial University was indeed worthy of being called the Imperial University. If such a person at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm did not meet him in Li Yuanwu, he would be able to take first place in any of the 3 cities tournament. With a move of his hand, the purple vein sword appeared in his hand. Immediately, 2 dragon elephant illusions appeared behind Long Chun and blocked with his sword. At the same time, a mischievous smile appeared on his face. To defeat this person, 1 move is enough. But if it's like this, I'm afraid that the other person will not dare to challenge. Chapter 54. Duped? Although Long Chun was only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm, his strength was comparable to the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm. As for martial skills, he didn't put them in his eyes. In his previous life, when he had reached the Dominator realm, all the martial skills he had learned had reached the perfection of martial skills. He even had many secret skills. It was just that his cultivation was too low and there were many methods that he could not use. However, with his cultivation of the spiritual martial realm, he was able to use the martial skills of the transcendent realm. He could even use the martial skills of the transcendent realm. Although he could not reach the transcendent realm, the power of the small success was not a problem at all. Xiao Qian, who was at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm, was like a child in front of him. His overall strength was only slightly higher than Wei Song's. If Xie Fei knew that Li Yuanwu and his cousin Xie Chongfeng had died at the hands of Long Chun, he definitely wouldn't have only brought these 2 people. Now that the battle had begun, Xie Fei was still prepared to see Long Chun make a fool of himself. Long Chun pretended to be in a difficult position. Every time he blocked Xiao Qian's long blade, his speed was just right. I didn't expect you to have some strength. Xiao Qian couldn't help but be surprised. He originally thought that he would be able to defeat Long Chun in a few moves. He didn't expect that after 10 moves, although Long Chun was in a difficult position, he still didn't show any signs of defeat. The surrounding people were also discussing. They secretly thought that Long Chun had some skills. He was only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm and could withstand so many moves from Xiao Qian, who was at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. However, the crowd quickly shook their heads. After all, if this continued, it was only a matter of time before he lost. Xiao Qian seemed to have completely lost interest. The primeval blade technique in his hands was extremely fast. The fierce intent instantly became violent, like a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey. At the same time, he also used a martial skill. His speed suddenly increased, and he shouted, "Lose!" Yanli stood at the side and frowned. She secretly thought that if this attack hit Long Chun, he would be bettered in for half a year. Zhang Feng, who was standing at the side, looked a little uncomfortable, but she secretly thought that Long Chun was too ignorant. It was better for him to be taught a lesson. Fortunately, she didn't lose her mind and lent him 3,000 points. Otherwise, she was afraid that all her points would have been wasted. Long Chun narrowed his eyes slightly and thought that it was about time. Once again, he purposely showed some signs of weakness. Immediately, the long sword in his hand suddenly drew a semicircle and actually brushed past Xiao Qian's long saber. The originally ferocious demonic beast-like sword move seemed to have lost all of its power in an instant, becoming as soft as a little white rabbit. Not only that, but the purple striped sword in Long Chen's hand actually increased in speed, its power explosively increasing. Bang! Long Chen's hand suddenly sped up and slapped his sword across Xiao Qian's chest. All of this happened extremely quickly. By the time everyone reacted, Qiu Qian's entire body had already been blasted flying, while blood ceaselessly flowed out from the corners of his mouth, and then he fell unconscious on the ground. The surrounding people suddenly exclaimed. On the side, Xie Fei and the other person's face suddenly darkened. No one thought that Long Chen would actually turn the tables in the last attack. Zheng Fong couldn't help but be stunned. Thinking that this battle would have earned her a few thousand points, she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She was originally about to break through to the second level of the spiritual martial realm. During this period of time, she had been distressed over a bottle of spiritual level breakthrough pill that was worth 5,000 points. If she had really lent her points to Long Chen, perhaps it would have been enough. However, after a moment, she felt relieved because it wasn't just her. Many people on the side also saw that Long Chen's last attack was to use force to defeat force. Using softness to overcome strength. It was even more unexpected. In addition, Qiu Qian had underestimated his opponent, so he had succeeded in stealing the chicken. If the other person had challenged him, he would have definitely lost. However, at this moment, he had 8,000 points, so he could have rejected the challenge. Losing only 500 points was still a big gain. Damn it, I actually let you steal the chicken. If Qiu Qian had been more serious, he wouldn't have lost. Xie Fei's face was a little purple from anger. However, Long Chen waved the long sword in his hand and said, "Yeah, but unfortunately, he still lost. Thank you all for specially coming to give me points. Qing Xian, let's go." After saying that, Long Chen turned around to leave, as if he was afraid that the other person behind Xie Fei would challenge him and lose 500 points. Xie Fei saw this and quickly shouted, "Stop, there's someone behind me. He also wants to challenge you." He originally thought that Long Chen would turn around and run away, so he planned to take the person behind him and chase after him. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Long Chen actually stopped and stared at the person behind Xie Fei and said, "Him? It's not impossible, but if you want to challenge me, you have to bet at least 8,000 points. Otherwise, even if you win, you'll only get 500 points. It's better to just admit defeat." Whether it was Zheng Fong, Yin Li, or the surrounding people, they all laughed. They secretly thought that Long Chen could find a way out for himself and say that the other person didn't have enough points. However, 8,000 points was indeed a lot. Compared to the other person, he really couldn't take it out in such a short time. "Dang Long, I remember that you just killed 3 demonic beasts at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm this month. In addition to the 1,000 points per month, you should have 4,000 points. I have exactly 4,000 points here." Unexpectedly, Xie Fei sneered and raised his hand to throw the points jade to the other young man behind him. The young man quickly caught it and then walked in front of Long Chen and sneered, "If you directly admit defeat, it's fine. Now that you've said it, don't go back on your words. Here's 8,000 points. I'll bet 8,000 points with you." When the surrounding people heard that, they secretly thought that Long Chen was too arrogant. However, even if he went back on his words and admitted defeat now, other than losing face, he would only lose 500 points. Zheng Fong quickly said, "Hurry up and admit defeat. Don't be fooled by him. I'm afraid that his cultivation is above Qiu Qian's." Unfortunately, Long Chen waved his hand as if he was afraid that Deng Long would go back on his words. He said directly, "I accept your challenge. The bet is 8,000 points." The surrounding people were speechless for a while and almost fell to the ground. Not only did this guy not have a profile picture, but he also agreed very quickly. Could he not see that Deng Long was provoking him? This guy is a hothead. He lost 500 points and still has 7,500 points. Just now, he fought with Qiu Qian because of luck. Now, he actually dares to agree. Why do I feel that he's a little impatient? Zheng Fong, who was in front of Long Chen, almost choked on her breath. Before she could persuade Long Chen to reject the challenge, Long Chen had already agreed. Only Qing Xian, who was behind Long Chen, could not help but laugh. She looked at Deng Long and Xie Fei with a pitiful face. This scene was too similar to the scene in the Iron Mountain City's Ocean Sky Duel Arena. She secretly thought that her young master really knew how to tease people. Long Chun could not help but smile. He thought to himself, now that the points are in my hands, there's no need to hide my strength. Chapter 55. Qing Xian's secret ding. Long fiercely shook his head. He stared at Long Chun and said, he's only at the second level of the Ling Qi layer. I'm already at the peak of the third level of the Ling Qi layer. Even Xiao Qian was able to suppress him to the point that he couldn't even fight back. I can't lose. CFA nodded his head, thinking that Deng Long's martial arts and movement techniques were above Xiao Qian's. Long Chen's victory was just a fluke. There was nothing to be afraid of. As Deng Long spoke, he walked in front of Long Chun under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Soon after, he held a long spear in his hand, and a biting cold aura appeared out of nowhere. Behind him, 3 dragon elephant phantoms appeared, and the 4th one was about to take shape. Kid, today you definitely won't. Wong bang. A sword light flashed and disappeared. Long Chen's figure moved like a ghost. He appeared in front of Deng Long in an instant and slapped his sword hard on Deng Long's left shoulder. Before Deng Long could even close his mouth, he tumbled 100 meters to the ground, leaving a deep dent in the ground. He foamed at the mouth and fainted. He didn't even have time to cry out. Silence, a complete silence. Originally, there were more than a dozen spectators who were discussing how many moves Long Chun could withstand or when he would be defeated. However, at this moment, their voices had completely disappeared. Their jaws almost fell to the ground, and their eyes were wide open. Some people even pinched their own waists. Was this a dream? This guy had directly sent Deng Long, who was at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. Flying, Long Chun picked up the jade points that the two had thrown to the side and transferred 8,000 points to his own jade point. Looking at the 16,000 points in his jade point, he couldn't help but smile. Then, he slowly walked towards CFA. CFA took a few steps back and shouted like a startled bird, "What are you doing?" Following his shout, the surrounding people finally recovered from their shock. Zheng Feng bit her lower lip and stared at Long Chun. Her best friend, Li Yuan, revealed an apologetic smile and said in a low voice, "I didn't expect this country bumpkin to be so abnormal." Now, everyone could see that Long Chun definitely did it on purpose when he fought Xiao Qian. If he had revealed his strength at the beginning, CFA and Deng Long wouldn't have bet so many points. Now, they had won 12,000 points, which was more than a few months of hard work. I remember that you don't have any more points. Hearing Long Chen's words, CFA's, Deng Long Chun, and Long Chen's. Long Chen's, Xiao Qian's, and Long Chen's, let SSS. Long Chen's, and Long SSS. I'm a member of the Xing Alliance, and the Alliance Master, Gong Sun Xing, is the disciple of my uncle, the Guardian General, Xie Yunwu. CFA looked at the miserable state of Deng Long and Xiao Qian. It was likely that they wouldn't be able to get out of bed for at least a month. When Long Chun heard the words Jinyuan General, he suddenly frowned. Then, he saw a fierce look in the depths of CFA's eyes. He knew that although CFA's words were good, he was probably going to get even crazier revenge. Shortly after, he sneered, "Then all the more I can't let you go, because the Jinyuan General probably hates me even more than you do. I challenge you now." CFA didn't know what Long Chen meant, but his expression changed when he heard Long Chen's challenge. He immediately turned around and rushed into the crowd as if he was going to borrow a few hundred points. With his status and Gong Sun Xing's reputation in the royal school, there were probably people who would be willing to risk offending Long Chun by lending him 500 points. Unfortunately, he had no chance at all, because he had only taken a single step. Long Chun appeared in front of him and threw a punch. At the same time, Long Chun said, "Since you have no more points, then enjoy it." Bang, bang, bang. Pitter, patter, patter. Long Chun's punches were like the wind, landing on flesh every time, but never landing on a fatal spot. The more than 10 people around felt a chill in their hearts. They secretly thought that Long Chun was going to offend Gong Sun Xing and the General Jinyuan Mansion. He really didn't give them any face at all. After a full 10 breaths of time, A completely one-sided battle finally came to an end. If it was said that when Xie Fei and the other two walked over, they could be said to be as arrogant as wolves and tigers. But now, two of them were lying on the ground, foaming at the mouth, and one of them was completely swollen. His face, which was originally quite decent, was now completely swollen. While everyone was still in shock, Long Chun left with Qing Xian without looking back. I will definitely kill him. A weak, almost inaudible roar came out of Xie Fei's mouth. Seeing Long Chun leave, Zheng Fong was stunned for a moment. Thinking about her attitude towards Long Chun today, she felt her face burning. On the other side, after Long Chun left, he didn't choose to directly exchange for pills. Xie Fei's arrival reminded him that although he was now in the Imperial School, he was still in danger at all times. With his own cultivation, he could easily protect himself and had many tricks up his sleeve. However, Qing Xian didn't. She was only at the first level of the ordinary martial realm and could be said to be an ordinary maid. If he didn't pay attention for even a moment, it was very likely that he would regret it in his previous life. He and Qing Xian had been companions since childhood. The two of them didn't have a spectacular story, nor did they have any promises, but he knew that he was the only one in Qing Xian's world. Otherwise, she wouldn't have insisted on coming to the imperial capital despite knowing that it was dangerous. This silly girl was probably prepared to live and die with Long Chun. Long Chun found his courtyard according to the number on the jade token. There were a total of 3 rooms in the courtyard, which meant that he had 2 neighbors. However, at this moment, there was no one in the courtyard. Qing Xian, let me help you see what's wrong with your physique. Why is your cultivation so slow? Walking into the room, Long Chun whispered to Qing Xian. Qing Xian nodded her head, her cheeks slightly red. Long Chun's right hand fell on Qing Xian's lower abdomen. Then his eyebrows slightly furrowed, and he said in a low voice, Qing Xian, take off your clothes, young master. Qing Xian's originally red cheeks had now turned red. Her ears were completely red, like a ripe apple, and her body couldn't help but slightly tremble. However, immediately after, she looked deeply at Long Chun, her eyes filled with tenderness, and her hands slowly pulled off her clothes. Rustling, rustling. Her clothes fell, and her tall figure was no longer covered. Her skin was like jade, and her mountains were undulating. An intoxicating aura spread in the room. Long Chun even felt Qing Xian's nervous heartbeat, and her tightly closed eyes seemed to be anticipating and afraid of something. However, Long Chun didn't have such thoughts at this moment. His whole face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Chapter 56. Chapter 56-2. Year commitment. Qing Xian's entire body was slightly flushed, and she bit her lower lip tightly. Long Chun was her fiancé, and she had already decided on Long Chun. However, after a long while, she still didn't feel Long Chun's movements. Instead, she felt the temperature around her gradually becoming colder. Only then did she realize that Long Chun's expression was extremely ugly. Young master, what's wrong with you? Qing Xian could not help but ask. Long Chun looked at Qing Xian in front of him and thought of the things that happened in his previous life. He couldn't help but hold her in his arms. He gently stroked her smooth back and asked seriously, Qing Xian, have you heard of the ancient bloodline clan? Qing Xian shook his head in confusion, as if he was full of doubts about Long Chun's words. Long Chun took a deep breath and put on Qing Xian's clothes one by one. Then he said, Qing Xian, you trust me. Qing Xian tightened her clothes. She seemed to have noticed that something was wrong with Long Chun's mood. Qing Xian was originally adopted by the patriarch. I've been with young master since I was a child. Young master has been very attentive to me. In this world, young master is my family, and also the most trusted person in Qing Xian's world. Qing Xian's eyes were slightly red, and there were tears in her eyes. You might leave me for a very long time, but that's the only way to protect your life. Otherwise, you won't live for more than a year. Thud thud. As soon as Long Chun finished speaking, Qing Xian's face instantly turned pale. She sat on the bed absent-mindedly. What she was afraid of was not that she could not live for more than a year, but that she was afraid of leaving Long Chun, just like how Long Chun lost her in her previous life. Qing Xian, listen to me. There's a bloodline soul lock curse in your body. This curse is created by cursing the lives of people of the same clan. As far as I know, this curse can only be used by the ancient bloodline clan of the Nining clan. This curse has been with you for at least a dozen years. Every minute that passes increases the danger. I can help you remove this curse, but if I'm not wrong, once this formation is broken, you won't be far from returning to your clan. The Nining ancient clan was one of the top clans in the 8 great desolated lands under the 10 Directions celestial domain. There were many experts in the clan. With Long Chen's current cultivation, there was no way he could stop them from taking Qing Xian away. However, Long Chen knew that he had to remove the bloodline soul-locking curse. Otherwise, Qing Xuan's life would be in danger at any time. I promise, I'll give you 5 years. 3 years, 3 years, 3 years at most. I leave the 5 ancient bloodline, ancient peoples go. Long Chan saw that Qing Xian's face was getting paler and paler, and he couldn't help but feel a heart-wrenching pain. Qing Xian's beautiful face carried a touch of gentleness, and her eyes were as tender as water as she looked at Long Chun. Qing Xian believes in young master. Qing Xian doesn't know about the ancient bloodline clan or the ancient desolate lands. I only know that I will wait for you in this life. As she spoke, her slender hands reached for Long Chen's neck and gently pulled. The two of them fell onto the bed. Qing Xian exhaled and looked at Long Chen's tender eyes. He knew what she meant. Qing Xian wasn't stupid. She knew how powerful the person Long Chen was talking about was. She was afraid that she would never see Long Chen again, so she wanted to give herself to him at this moment. Believe me, as long as you're well, or maybe in 2 years, we'll meet again. At that time, I'll take you as my wife. Long Chen caressed her with his fingertips, but he didn't want to take the love of his life in this dark place that didn't even have a quilt. What's more, Qing Xian had the bloodline soul-locking curse in her body now. If this curse was triggered during intercourse, the loss would outweigh the gain. Qing Xian believes. Qing Xian choked with sobs. The two of them hugged each other deeply and made love, but they didn't take the last step. When the two of them woke up, it was already late in the morning. Qing Xian's face was crimson, and her body was only covered by a thin layer of gauze, while Long Chun was completely naked. Suddenly, a series of knocks came from outside the courtyard, and a rather angry female voice came in. Yinli. Long Chun spread out his divine sense and immediately sensed the person outside the door. He immediately got up and put on his clothes, thinking that because of yesterday's incident, he had forgotten that he had promised Yinli to go to the Purple Jade restaurant tonight to find her. After a while, the two of them walked out of the door. Thinking of the playful night, Qing Xian became even more shy. Long Chun quickly pushed open the door of the courtyard, only to see Yin Li's tall and slender body heaving up and down in anger. She stared at Long Chun with a dark face and said, "Good boy, you even dare to cancel my appointment." Yin Li was really angry. During the day, there were many people who couldn't make an appointment with her, and she was always the one who failed to make an appointment. This was the first time she had been stood up by someone, and it was such a young man. Long Chen was also speechless for a while. The reason for this was indeed him, so he could only apologize. "It's lunchtime now. I'll treat teacher Yin to a meal today." Yin Li's expression became better. She rolled her eyes at Long Chun and said, "The Purple Jade restaurant isn't cheap." After saying that, she walked away by herself. Long Chun smiled bitterly and followed behind with Qing Xian. Knowing that they would be leaving Long Chun soon, Qing Xian didn't seem to want to leave Long Chun for even a moment. Her whole body was almost glued to his body. The Purple Jade restaurant was the nearest high-end restaurant outside of the Imperial School. It was decorated with a kind of purple jade and was extremely gorgeous, hence the name. "Guests, you came at the right time. We just happened to have a vacant seat. please come in." Long Chun and the other two had just stepped into the restaurant when they were led by a smiling waiter to a four-seater table by the window on the first floor. This waiter didn't look very old, but he was quite familiar with Long Chun. He quickly recommended many signature dishes to Long Chun, obviously giving him enough face in front of Yin Li and Qing Xian. Long Chun didn't stand on ceremony and casually ordered a few dishes. The three of them casually sat down. Long Chun looked at Yin Li's somewhat indignant expression and couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. "Teacher Yin, don't tell me you're still holding a grudge over a student of mine? How about this? I'll give you the complete wind condensation arrays blueprint, and we'll forget about this matter. How about that?" When Yin Li heard the two words array, her eyes immediately lit up. She then stared at Long Chun and said seriously, "I came to find you because I need your help with something. A cave was discovered below the Death Cliff of the Death Mountain Range. There are many mechanisms in it, but there are also many arrays. The Academy has issued a mission to encourage the Academy's disciples to explore it. I want you to help me copy down all the arrays in there." Upon hearing this, Long Chun's eyes lit up. He didn't have the slightest interest in the so-called arrays blueprint, but according to her description, this place should be a cave. There would be many opportunities inside, and since it was an Academy mission, he could obtain quite a lot of rewards. Seeing that Long Chun was full of interest, Yin Li said, "The mission was issued by other teachers, which means that when this Academy mission is completed, it is also equivalent to completing the mission for me and the other teachers. We will also give points as a reward." The teachers are also discussing the time to form a team. Chapter 57. The Join Ancient People. The Purple Jade restaurant was already full. Long Chun wasn't a rude person, so he said to Qing Xian, "Move over here. This table isn't small, as long as you don't disturb us." When the waiter heard this, he didn't expect Long Chun to be so easy to talk to, so he thanked him repeatedly. Not long after, a middle-aged man in his 30s walked over to Long Chun and the others with a handsome young man. When the two saw Yin Li, they raised their eyebrows and smiled. "I didn't expect to meet junior sister Yin Li here. I asked you out for a long time, but you didn't give me face." As the middle-aged man spoke, he casually sat down and his eyes fell on Yin Li. Yin Li didn't pay attention to him at all. Instead, she said to Long Chun, "In about 15 days, we will form a team to enter the Death Mountain Range. You should prepare well these days." The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and stared at Long Chun in surprise. "You're the person junior sister Yin Li found this time. Then you should have some understanding of formations. When the time comes, I will ask Fong Chun to look after you." The middle-aged man looked at Long Chun and saw that he was young, so his cultivation must be ordinary, and most of his clothes were very different from the children of high officials in the capital. "Teacher Xiang Tian, don't worry. I will help junior brother on this trip." The young man glanced at Long Chun. Although his mouth said so, there was a bit of contempt in his heart. Recently, a group of country bumpkins from various cities in the capital came to the Academy, and he looked down on them very much. Long Chun's clothes showed that he wasn't from the capital. Long Chun didn't comment, and he was too lazy to say more. Just as they were talking, the waiter of the restaurant served wine and dishes one by one. Suddenly, the aroma of the food greeted Long Chun, and he secretly thought that the Purple Jade restaurant's cooking was not bad. "Brother, this place is short of seat. Why don't you let your maid stand to the side? This is the second son of the Fong family, a third-grade military official. You can also get to know him." Xiang Tian glanced at Qing Xian and waved his hand to let Fong Chun sit down. Seeing this scene, Qing Xian subconsciously wanted to stand up, but was slightly pressed down by Long Chun's right hand. "Eat. Don't care about these miscellaneous people." Long Chun looked deeply at Fong Chun and said, "We vacated this seat. There is only one seat. If you don't want to eat, you can leave." Miscellaneous people? Fong's words and Long Chun's face. In his heart, Long Chun's if Yin Li and Xiang Tian's is if Yin and Xiang Tian were here, he wouldn't chance. "Long, how dare you? She's just a maid. A country bumpkin is really a country bumpkin. You treat a maid like a treasure?" Fong Chun's face suddenly turned green. He was about to get angry, but he was stopped by Xiang Tian. That's enough. Don't make a fool of yourself in front of teacher Yanli. Xiang Tian was a martial arts teacher of the Imperial College. If not for this, Fengshen wouldn't care about the cave-dwelling mission. Seeing Xiang Tian stop him, Fengshen could only glare fiercely at Long Chun. Yanli sat at the side, seemingly angry that Long Chun stood her up yesterday. She looked at him mischievously but didn't say anything. After all, the strength Long Chun showed yesterday was not something Fengshen could compare to. It didn't hurt to let him suffer a little. Fengshen secretly thought that he couldn't act rashly in front of teacher Yin Li and Xiang Tian, but if Long Chun really entered the Death Mountain range with him, then he would have his revenge. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but laugh coldly and didn't say anything. But he didn't know that Long Chun also deeply remembered him. Young master, let's go. I want you to take me to see the capital these 3 days. I've never left Iron Mountain City before. Qing Xian also felt Long Chen's unhappiness. Thinking that he had to help Qing Xian break the curse 3 days later, Qing Xian would most likely be taken away by the Juin ancient people. He didn't want to waste time on these boring people, so he turned and left with Qing Xian. Seeing that Long Chen left, Yinli completely lost interest in eating. She waved her hand and said, "Didn't you want to sit down? You two eat slowly and pay the bill while you're at it." The two were angry and their faces darkened. Was she treating them as beggars? Xiang Tian looked at Yin Li's graceful back and said to Fengshen after a while, "When the time comes, I don't want to see this person come back from the Death Mountain range, but bring back everything he got from there. I'll personally give it to Yin Li." Fengshen heard this and laughed coldly. "I understand." On the other side, Long Chun brought Qing Xian around the capital and bought many materials to break the bloodline soul-locking curse. It wasn't difficult for Long Chun to break the curse, but large races like the Juin ancient people were very sensitive to their own kind. This kind of connection from the soul and bloodline couldn't be stopped at all. Once the blood curse was broken, with the strength of the Juin ancient people, it would take at most a few hours for a Dao integration stage cultivator to come and take him away. Everything happened too suddenly. Looking at Qing Xian beside him, Long Chun clenched his fists and thought to himself that he had to improve his strength as fast as possible. Although he had solved many of the fetters from his previous life in this life, it had also brought about many new troubles. If he wasn't strong enough, it would be very difficult. Qing Xian's bloodline power is extremely pure. Even if she returns to the clan, she won't be in any danger. Instead, it might be a great opportunity, Long Chun thought to himself. There were many ancient races in the ancient Desolation Land, and the bloodline ancient races were very concerned about the purity of their bloodline. Qing Xian's bloodline power was already considered to be of the highest quality. In 3 days, Long Chun and Qing Xian walked around the entire capital. On the 3rd day, Long Chun gave Qing Xian the medicinal solution that he had prepared. "Qing Xian, trust me. In 1 or 2 years, I will definitely come and find you. By then, we will be husband and wife. It might not be a bad thing for you to return. With the strength of the Juin ancient people and your bloodline power, you might be a higher level than me in 1 or 2 years." Qing Xian's originally red eyes lit up. She threw herself into Long Chen's arms and whispered, "Qing Xian will definitely work hard to become stronger. I won't be a burden to young master like I am now." The two hugged each other for a long time. Then Qing Xian drank the medicinal solution. As soon as the medicinal solution entered her throat, the blood-red light in her body suddenly scattered. Immediately, a wave of cold air rose around her with a loud bang. Within 100 meters of her surroundings, a layer of white ice shards suddenly covered her. Buzz! As Qing Xian chanted an incantation, ripples that couldn't be seen by the naked eye spread out from the top of her head and fell into the void. The ripples circulated. In a palace far away in the Black Dragon Empire, a sinister middle-aged man's chi and blood surged. Immediately, his eyes shone brightly, and he suddenly disappeared. Chapter 58. The time of separation. Long Chun and Qing Xian stood in the wilderness outside the imperial capital. The two of them leaned against each other for more than 8 hours. After that, Long Chan abruptly stood up and looked towards the horizon with rapt attention. The void was torn apart like a black flame burning in the sky. Two old men slowly walked out with a young man. The surrounding space trembled uncontrollably, and ripples spread out like the surface of a lake. It was extremely terrifying. Long Chen's pupils shrank as he stared at the three of them. These two elderly men were Tao integration stage mighty figures who had already manifested soul seeds. Their bodies were indestructible, and their divine intents were indestructible. Spirit martial arts, soul formation, void returning, Tao integration. Such experts had long surpassed the peak combat power of the Black Dragon Empire and even the 5 major sects. Any one of them could easily destroy the 5 major sects. What a rich 9-yin bloodline. More than 10 years ago, it was because of the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth when young Miss was born that she was kidnapped by that crazy woman. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 years have passed. I didn't expect that she still hasn't ruthlessly killed young Miss. The two old men were very excited. They moved and appeared beside Qing Xian and Long Chun in the next moment. Qing Xian's complexion turned pale, and he subconsciously stuck close to Long Chun. This scene fell into the eyes of the young man called Zhu Yinzhong, who was standing behind the two old men. Suddenly, a trace of dense killing intent flashed in his eyes. In an instant, icicles fell from the air, and crystal light scattered in all directions. How dare you? Who are you? How dare you blaspheme the daughter of the 9-yin giant corpse tribe's clan leader? The man shouted. His eyes were like lightning as he glared at Long Chun. The pressure from his body soared into the sky. However, while Long Chun was fine, Qing Xian's complexion turned deathly pale in an instant. This change caused the two old men's complexions to change greatly. They hurriedly shouted, "Young Master Yinzhong, stop! Young Mrs. Cultivation is extremely low right now." Zhu Yinzhong seemed to realize that something was wrong and quickly dispersed his aura. Long Chen's expression darkened as he stared at the three of them. You three are the Tao integration stage powerhouses of a 9-yin giant corpse tribe? Do you have a yin candle to prove your identity? The two old men were Tao integration stage powerhouses, and even the young man had reached the initial stage of void return. According to the timeline, these people should be members of the 9-yin giant corpse tribe. However, Long Chun was still a little worried, so he wanted to confirm it. Long Chen's words startled the two elders. They stared intently at Long Chun and found it amusing. Long Chun was less than 20 years old, and his cultivation base was only at the spirit martial stage. He was like an ant, but he showed no signs of fear in the face of two Tao integration stage mighty figures. He even knew that every member of the 9-yin giant corpse tribe had to carry a token. Although the two of them were puzzled, they could see that the relationship between Long Chun and Qing Xian wasn't ordinary. Therefore, they waved their right hands, and a cold candle flame appeared in their hands. Long Chun nodded. He had seen a 9-yin giant corpse tribe in his previous life. This tribe considered themselves to be the inheritor of the Candle Dragon's bloodline. For generations, they worshipped the Candle Dragon, who had a human face, a dragon body, and a candle flame in his mouth. Therefore, every member of the joint ancient people would carry a yin candle as a token. Zhu Yinzhong, who was standing behind the two old men, stared at Long Chun with disdain. As the foster son of the 9-yin giant corpse tribe's leader, he immediately thought of proposing marriage to the leader after hearing that Qing Xian was still alive. That way, he would be able to control the 9-yin giant corpse tribe one day. Before coming here, he had already proposed marriage to the leader, and even the wedding date had been set. However, the intimacy between Qing Xian and Long Chun made him very unhappy, especially when he found out that Long Chun was only at the spirit martial stage. Qing Xian, leave with them. Believe me, I will go to the ancient desolate land to look for you in a year or two. Long Chun gently patted Qing Xian's shoulder. Since Qing Xian had the 9-yin giant corpse tribe's bloodline, she would definitely be able to obtain the best cultivation method in the 9-yin giant corpse tribe. Not to mention, she was the daughter of the leader of the 9 giant corpse tribe, which made Long Chun feel a lot more relieved. Young master, don't worry. Qing Xian will wait for you no matter what. Qing Xian cried like a weeping beauty. In the end, she flew away with the 2 old men. Zhu Yinzhong narrowed his eyes and slowly walked to Long Chen's side. He sneered in his ear and said, I originally wanted to kill you, but now I've changed my mind. I'm not afraid to tell you that the leader has already agreed to betroth Miss to me when she turns 18. If you want to come to the ancient desolate land, it's best that you come here within 2 years. Perhaps you can even attend the wedding. Haha. It's a pity that you'll only be at the soul formation stage in 20 years, let alone 2 years. Weaklings are really pitiful, Zhu Yinzhong said and flew into the sky. Then, the 2 Dao integration stage elders tore open space again and disappeared into the night sky with them. Long Chun stared at the sky where Qing Xian had left and clenched his fists tightly. He said in a deep voice, 2 years. In 2 years, I'll definitely reach the void return stage or even the Dao integration stage. I'll rush out of the 5 sects and head to the ancient desolate land. After saying this, Long Chun turned and left, reaching the void return stage from the initial stage of the spirit martial realm in 2 years. If anyone heard this, they would probably laugh it off. Void return stage cultivators were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns in the entire Black Dragon Empire. Only the 5 sects were common. However, who would have heard of a void return stage cultivator who was less than 20 years old? Long Chun was only 16 years old now. In 2 years, he would only be 18. Reaching the void return stage in such a short period of time, Long Chun also felt endless pressure. When he returned to the imperial capital, it was as if no one knew what had happened outside the city. The entire academy was still as quiet as before. In the residence of the Imperial Academy, Long Chun pushed open the door and entered. He heard a burst of laughter and looked over. He saw 2 big men sparring with each other. With a sweep of his divine consciousness, he knew that the 2 of them had reached the peak of the 4th stage of the spirit martial realm and were on the verge of a breakthrough. Brother, are you a new roommate? We're practicing our martial arts here. If we disturb you, please don't be offended. The older man stared at Long Chun and said politely. Long Chun smiled. Seeing that the 2 of them were full of loopholes in their sparring, he secretly thought that since they were roommates, they could be considered half a friend. He then said, Your saber technique is more feminine and is more suitable for women to practice. If you continue like this, you'll get half the result with twice the effort. If you don't want to continue practicing, why don't you remove the first part of each move? This way, the power should be increased by a bit. When the 2 of them heard this, they smiled and didn't say anything. At this point, Long Chun didn't care whether they listened or not. These few days, he was really tired. Qing Xian's departure made him feel empty in his heart, as if something was missing. After entering the room, Long Chun fell asleep immediately. The sound of fighting outside the door didn't cause him the slightest bit of trouble. He slept until midnight. His eyes, which were originally deep in sleep, suddenly opened. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at the door. In the blink of an eye, his divine consciousness covered the entire courtyard. Big brother, this person looks pretty good. What he said today will indeed increase our martial arts. Are we really going to make a move? The second in command of the Qing Alliance said that as long as we kill this person, the 2 of us can become members of the Qing Alliance. Moreover, he will take care of all the consequences. If it wasn't for the fact that the Qing Alliance members are all training in the chaotic battle zone, this kind of good thing wouldn't have happened to us. That's true. He can only blame himself for provoking someone he shouldn't have. The 2 of us are lucky. If we kill him, not only will we be able to enter the Qing Alliance, we should also be able to obtain a lot of resources. Chapter 59. Night of Murder Under the Moonlight. The courtyard was filled with spots of light. 2 silhouettes slowly approached Long Chen's room. The shining long sabers in their hands made the moonlight even colder. Long Chen slowly sat up in his room. He thought to himself that this was only the first time he had met these 2 people, and he had even given them some pointers in martial arts. He had originally hoped to get along well with them under the same roof, but now, in the face of benefits, they had turned into swords in the blink of an eye. It's fine if they turn back at the last moment, but if they do, they can only die here today, Long Chun said as he held his sword in his hand. His figure instantly disappeared into the darkness. The pitch-black room was so quiet that even the sound of a heartbeat could not be heard. This assassination technique was mastered by his sworn brother, the ruler of the night, in his previous life. However, his brother had never used it, so Long Chun had learned it all. Tap, tap. The sound of light footsteps entered the house, and a biting, cold, murderous intent filled the air. The moonlight slowly crept into the house through the crack in the door. More and more, and more and more, and finally, two figures landed on the ground, and a cold gleam appeared on their long sabers. The moment the door was opened, the two of them leaped into the air like a lion hunting a rabbit. They pounced on Long Chin's bed and hacked down with their long sabers. Both of them were at the peak of the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm. Under such a sneak attack, even if they were at the 5th or 6th level of the spiritual martial realm, they would die on the spot. Hum, hum. The long saber struck the bed with great force, and the entire bed broke apart like cotton wool. Stone chips scattered everywhere. Oh no! The two of them immediately discovered that there was no one on the bed, and there was no blood under the long saber. Huff, huff. The two of them were not ordinary people. They immediately sensed the danger after the first strike. They immediately brandished their long swords, creating a curtain of swords that blocked off the surrounding area. Those who kill will always be killed. A faint voice drifted over, catching the faint moonlight. The eyes of the two were like lightning, but they were also full of doubts. Where was the person who rarely spoke in this room? The slightly older man suddenly frowned and cried out in alarm. At the same time, the long saber in his hand stabbed upwards. Not good, it's above. The sword was like a fleeting shadow, disappearing in a flash. A line of blood spilled onto the ground. The cold moonlight illuminated the deathly pale ground. The slightly younger person fell to the ground, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Second brother. The older man bellowed angrily as he stared at Long Chun with bulging eyes. Long Chin's eyes were as calm as an ancient well. The blood on the long sword in his hand dripped down like dew. He said indifferently, "Stop pretending. You deliberately retreated a little after that strike. If you really cared about him, you wouldn't have done that." Long Chin's eyes flashed with a sneer. Although these two were brothers, they were clearly not of the same mind. After the eldest brother smashed the bed, he immediately retreated behind the second brother. Otherwise, even Long Chin's attack wouldn't have gone so smoothly. At the very least, the two of them were able to withstand a few blows from each other. So what? Now that you've come out, he didn't die in vain today. I will avenge him. The person let out a cold snort and his face darkened. Originally, when he attacked the bed, he was certain that Long Chun would definitely attack from somewhere. He also immediately thought of a solution, which was to reveal an opening. However, this opening would be the person who died. However, he didn't think that Long Chin's swordsmanship would be so fast. His attack was stealthy and unpredictable, so he didn't manage to save the person. It's good that he's dead. After killing you, I'll be rewarded by the Xingming and the General Jinyuan mansion. In a few months, breaking through to the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm, or even the 6th level won't be a problem. Now that Long Chun was standing in front of him, the person calmed down. In his eyes, Long Chun was just a young man who had just entered the royal school. His strength was far from his. As long as he showed himself, he wouldn't be a threat. The Xingming? The General Jinyuan mansion. Long Chun smiled coldly. It seemed that the news of him killing Xie Chongfeng had reached the ears of the Jinyuan general. Originally, with the two of you working together, I might have some trouble, but now you can die. Long Chun looked at the corpse on the ground. The long sword in his hand flashed like a rainbow, and waves of cold light pierced out. The light of the sword suddenly appeared, and bursts of lightning exploded in the air, bringing with it a destructive aura. King level martial skill, sword light, thunder cut. Long Chun had the strength of 2 dragon elephants, but he had 24 martial veins in the mortal martial realm. Therefore, his strength alone was comparable to that of the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm. Under this sword, sword intent emerged. Killing an ordinary person at the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm would be a piece of cake. The face of the man holding the long sword changed greatly. He looked at the sword in Long Chen's hand in horror. At this moment, even though he was arrogant, he felt that the power of this sword was definitely not the power of an ordinary person at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. Bang, bang. While the man was shocked, he struck out with his sword. It was a slightly fierce Taoist skill, but there was still a trace of gentleness. Long Chen smiled coldly and swung his sword. The long sword in the man's hand was hit directly. The man's whole body hit the wall fiercely, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. I said that your martial skill is too gentle. Although you listened to me and improved a little, unfortunately, it's still too weak. Long Chun said disdainfully. Since he could see the shortcomings of the man's saber skill, this man's saber skill could be easily broken. Moreover, the difference between a spiritual level saber skill and his king level sword skill was like heaven and earth. The man's face was full of horror, and he exclaimed, You're obviously at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. Why do you have the strength of a person at the 4th or 5th level of the spiritual martial realm? And this sword skill, is this a king level sword skill? He himself cultivated a spiritual level saber skill. With one strike, he knew that Long Chen's sword seemed to be straightforward, but in fact, it contained the power of thunder. When it exploded, it was unpredictable. It was definitely not a spiritual level martial skill. Unfortunately, Long Chun did not give him a chance because his divine sense had already sensed that the Academy's law enforcement team had quickly arrived 100 meters away from the courtyard. Long Chun did not hesitate and directly killed the man with one strike. Then, he casually took the storage rings from the 2 people. With a thought, he took the things into his own storage space. Immediately, his eyebrows raised and the corner of his mouth revealed a smile. The people here had used up all their points, but there were many pills in the storage rings for breaking through to the next level. It seemed that these 2 guys were planning to break through to the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm together. With these spiritual medicines and the points I have, it shouldn't be a problem to condense the power of 2 dragon elephants in a short period of time. Since Xing Ming and the Jinyuan general have a connection, I'll give him another big gift. Land of Chaos? Xing Ming, wait for me. Chapter 60. Chapter 60. Living with Beauty. The Academy's law enforcement team arrived at the courtyard where Long Chun was. Seeing Long Chun sitting peacefully by the table and 2 corpses not far from his feet, the leader's face immediately darkened. Do you know that life and death battles are not allowed within the Academy? The middle-aged man in the lead exuded an intimidating aura as he asked Long Chun. Long Chun was slightly shocked. This person's strength had already reached the semi-god realm. The spiritual chi in his body had turned into a sea, and his divine thoughts had just been born. At this stage, he could already injure people with his breath. No matter how many warriors of the spiritual martial realm there were, they would not be able to defeat him. Long Chun looked around at the other law enforcers who were inspecting him. He replied, The 2 of them tried to assassinate me in the middle of the night. I was just trying to protect myself. The leader looked around the bed and asked the inspector, Is what he said true? That's indeed the case. These saber scars belong to the 2 of them. Moreover, their saber techniques are the same as those recorded in the Academy's records. Moreover, based on the angle of their attacks, it should have been a sneak attack. Hearing these words, the middle-aged man in the lead stared at Long Chun and relaxed. Then, he said indifferently, Since it's self-defense, then this matter has nothing to do with you. Go to the office and reapply for a place to stay. Long Chun cupped his fists and left without saying anything else. After Long Chun left, the examiner said in a low voice, Boss, this little guy is amazing. These two brothers were killed by a single sword attack. There were no other wounds on their bodies. They were both at the peak of the fourth Ling Chi layer. A fatal strike? The middle-aged man in the lead was also shocked. He immediately ordered, "Investigate this brat for me. Find out why these two people attacked him in the middle of the night." Long Chun felt very helpless. He did not expect that the people of the law enforcement hall would chase him out in the middle of the night. He had to go to the office to choose a new residence. A moment later, when he arrived at the office and informed them of everything, something even more awkward happened. The student residences still needed at least a month to be refurbished. The reason was that this time, the Royal School's intake of students was much higher than the previous times. The accommodation that they had prepared beforehand was simply insufficient, and most of the other courtyards were undergoing major renovations. "Student, how about this? The teachers' courtyards are quite empty now. You can stay there for a period of time. Not only will this solve the problem, but you will also be able to get close to the teacher's guidance. How about it?" The staff said helplessly. When Long Chen heard this, he could only do so. Who knew how long the law enforcement team would seal him up? Seeing that Long Chen had agreed, the staff member casually opened up a list of names and handed it to Long Chen. "You can choose a martial arts teacher to live with you. When the time comes, you will definitely improve a lot. Consider it your compensation." When Long Chen heard this, he smiled slightly and did not mind. He planned to randomly choose one. Long Chen was surprised. When he flipped to the first page, the name that appeared was actually his formation teacher, Yanli. "Brat, you have a big heart, but I like it. I'll help you record it. Since you have such a reason, she won't refuse." As he spoke, the staff member had a wretched look on his face. "There are no rules, but I'll just treat it as me doing a good deed." Long Chun helplessly walked towards the courtyard marked on the jade token. He thought to himself that this was not bad. At least, Yanli was safe, and he did not have to be on guard all the time. He also knew this person, so it was better to be familiar with him. After all, if he met other teachers who were bribed, it would be very dangerous for him to launch a sneak attack. The teacher's courtyard and Long Chen's courtyard were 7,000 to 8,000 meters apart. Long Chen looked at the courtyard in front of him and thought to himself that the teacher's courtyard was much better than the students'. It was like the difference between a palace and a farmer's courtyard. Long Chen raised his hand to knock on the door, but his hand froze. "There's actually an array on this door?" Long Chen shook his head and laughed. He thought to himself that Yin Li was indeed an array teacher. There was actually a simple vine array on the door of the courtyard. If he touched it directly, his entire hand would be entangled. Long Chen was also interested. He tapped on the door with his right hand, and every time he tapped on the door, a ripple would spread out. Ka-ka! After 10 breaths, Long Chen pushed the door open and entered. He thought to himself that the path of array was really mysterious. "Who is it?" Long Chen heard a delicate shout as soon as he entered the courtyard. He saw a pair of shining white legs appear in front of him. Yan Li's curvaceous body was wrapped in a white silk scarf. Her tall and straight twin peaks were faintly discernible, and her long black hair was faintly discernible. Long Chen. The moment Yan Li saw Long Chen, her originally vigilant eyes relaxed. She asked, "What are you doing here?" Originally, she was still wondering who in the academy was able to break through her vine array and enter the courtyard. However, when she saw that it was Long Chen, she wasn't surprised. Previously, when Long Chen casually used his sword to form an array, she was extremely shocked. This vine array was nothing to him. Long Chen's eyes swept over her body without any concealment. He ignored Yan Li's fiery eyes and told her the whole story. When Yan Li saw Long Chen's gaze sweep over her, anger rose on her face. She hurriedly said, "You can stay in the room on the left first. Without my permission, you are not allowed to enter my room." As she spoke, she hurriedly turned and left, closing the door heavily. Long Chen touched his nose and secretly thought that this Yan Li's figure was really not bad. He then walked into the room and sat cross-legged on the bed. With Yan Li here, he secretly thought that Xing Meng would not dare to act rashly. Only then did he take out the medicinal pills from his storage ring. 20 spirit-level breakthrough pills and 50 chi gathering pills. These two fellows originally planned to use the medicinal pills to break through, but now I'm benefiting. Long Chen's mouth revealed a trace of smile. He immediately circulated the primal chaos golden codex and put the medicinal pills one by one into his mouth. When the medicinal pills entered his body, they immediately emitted waves of dense spiritual energy. Long Chen's body was enshrouded in a dense golden light. His mouth and nose were like the breath of a demonic beast, rapidly absorbing the spiritual energy. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the second day. Yanli sensed that Long Chen seemed to be in seclusion, but she did not disturb him and directly left. Bang, bang. Just as Yanli stepped out of the courtyard, she heard a muffled sound from Long Chen's room. She thought to herself, this fellow actually broke through. At such a young age, he's already at the third level of the spiritual martial realm and has condensed the strength of 3 dragon elephants. He could be considered a genius. After speaking, Yanli left without looking back. Long Chen looked at the remaining 12 spirit-level breakthrough pills and 30 chi gathering pills, and a trace of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He closed his eyes again. On the other side, in the school's chaotic battlefield, a person wearing a scarlet mask flew into a rage and shouted to the people around him, "What a piece of trash." He actually failed such a small task. Those 2 brothers might have already attracted the attention of the law enforcement team. We must kill this person before things become complicated. Chapter 61. Chapter 61. Field of Melee. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Yanli stared at Long Chen's door with anger written all over her face. Long Chen had been in seclusion ever since he came back that night. It had been 3 days, and he still hadn't come out. He was absent from all the compulsory classes in the academy, and Yanli had even specially helped him offset it with her points. See how I'll deal with you if you don't bring back the array diagram of the Broken Soul Mountain Range, Yanli said angrily to herself. In the room, Long Chen opened his eyes. At this moment, 3 golden lights were shining in his body. He had already opened 3 major acupoints and condensed the power of 3 dragon elephants. However, the 4th major acupoint was emitting a faint golden light, but it was not complete. It seemed that he was still a little bit away from breaking through. Long Chen's spiritual force had been spread out, and he had seen Yin Li's displeasure for the past few days. Only then did he walk out with a smile. You finally came out. I spent a total of 2,000 points to help you apply for leave. Hurry up and give it back to me. Yanli looked at Long Chen's lazy appearance and suddenly became angry. Long Chen was taken aback. He had almost forgotten that he still had compulsory courses to attend. Otherwise, he would have to pay points. Seeing the anger on Yin Li's face, Long Chen hurriedly gave the jade to her and said, "Take more. I don't plan on going to class for the next few days. I'm going to the chaotic battlefield." Yin Li almost threw Long Chen's jade tablet away. "Do you think I'm an errand runner?" However, when she heard the words chaotic battleground, her beautiful brows immediately furrowed. She said in a deep voice, "What are you going to do in the chaotic battleground? That's an area that the academy doesn't care about." Long Chen's eyes flashed. He said in a cold voice, "Go find Xingmeng. Are you going to wait for them to come to our door?" Xingmeng? Hearing this, Yin Li's expression became even more worried. She said, "You only had some conflict with CFA. After the deaths of those 2 who attacked you, Xingmeng probably won't take any more risks. If you enter the battlefield now, you'll be walking right into a trap." Although the leader of the Xing League, Gongsun Xing, has been in seclusion to make a breakthrough and is planning to become an intermediate student, the second in command of the Xing League, Martial Thunder, and a group of Xing League members are fighting against the Rain League in the fringe. What's the difference between going in now and committing suicide? Apart from Gongsun Xing, Xingmeng's second in command, Wu Lei, was also a famous junior disciple. His cultivation level had reached level 6 languaging. According to Yin Li, Long Chen was only at the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. Even though his battle prowess was extraordinary, Wu Lei was still much weaker than him. When Long Chun saw that Yanli was so concerned about him, he couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. However, he joked, "I have already decided to go. Could it be that teacher, Yin Li, is afraid that I won't be able to come back and complete your mission? Shoo shoo shoo. Are you afraid that I won't be able to find him? Take this mask with you. It will be useful when the time comes." Yin Li was very angry with Long Chun. She slammed the door and left. Long Chun smiled and followed closely behind. He then flew towards the fringe. At this moment, I have more than 20,000 points in my hands. This time, I will definitely get some more and try to exchange them all for high-grade medicinal pills. In the fringe, fights could be fought at will. Many conflicts that could not be resolved in the fringe would be arranged to fight to the death here. However, there was an even greater use for this place, which was for the various alliances within the academy to fight against each other. The academy did not suppress the alliances formed by the students. Instead, they received a lot of support from the academy. The academy would even specially assign missions to the alliances so that they could participate in small-scale battles between the empires in advance and contribute to the empires. When Long Chun arrived at the fringe, he saw many disciples wearing masks from afar. Although he did not know what they were used for, he still put them on. The fringe was located in the Western District. It was known that it was the fastest place to earn points. Whether it was through missions or other methods, how could it be faster than robbing points? Because of this, there were many people here. When Long Chun spread out his divine sense, he even found that the students with the lowest cultivation level were at the 4th level of the Lingqi layer. Of course, the masks on their faces were useless in front of Long Chun's eyes. The fringe was surrounded by a huge wall that was tens of meters tall. There were a total of 7 entrances. However, there were 2 entrances that no one entered or exited. Only corpses wrapped in white cloth could be seen on the sides. They were extremely eye-catching, causing the surrounding people to step back. The fringe was divided into 7 areas. Usually, when there were a large number of casualties in a battle between alliances, there would be specialized personnel to clean up the corpses and ensure that there would not be any disturbances inside. Only then did Long Chun realize that there was a notice on the wall beside each entrance. The notice clearly stated whether or not there was an alliance battle going on inside. As for the 2 entrances that no one had entered, there were alliance battles going on inside. The first entrance was for the Intermediate Alliance. The other entrance was for the Xing Alliance and the Rain Alliance. A cold smile appeared on Long Chun's face as he strode toward the 7th entrance. "Halt! There are 2 alliances fighting inside. Are you sure you want to go in?" An academy guard reminded him. His duty was to stop reckless new students. If an outsider entered a battle between alliances, they would die. Basically, no one would choose to enter an entrance where alliances were fighting. "I'm sure." Long Chun's answer instantly caused the guard to reveal an astonished expression. He frowned and said again, "Do you know that once you enter this kind of alliance battle, it is extremely likely that you will be killed by the 2 alliances first? Are you sure you want to go in?" "I'm sure." Seeing Long Chun so determined, the guard did not bother to say anything more. He only looked at him as if he was an idiot. His duty was over. Since someone wanted to seek death, it had nothing to do with him. After Long Chun entered the entrance, there was a clamor behind him. "Looks like it's another idiotic new student who doesn't know what's good for him. Last time, there was a small team of 12 people that wanted to fish in troubled waters, but their corpses were thrown out on the 2nd day. The Xing Alliance and the Rain Alliance have always been xenophobic. Once someone enters, they will probably kill the outsider first. This guy is dead for sure." After entering the 7th entrance, Long Chun quickly came to an open area. He looked around and saw the undulating mountains. However, there were no demonic beasts roaring. It was as if he was in the wild. They actually used a pretty good spatial array here. There are huge array walls in all directions. It's clearly only a few thousand meters wide, but it feels like it's tens of thousands of square meters. Long Chun looked at the array patterns on the wall behind him and the 3 big words, "Oh Yezi," on it, as he muttered to himself. Long Chun spread out his divine sense and quickly sensed the faint sounds of fighting. He then quickly fled into the distance. After traveling for a while, Long Chun's speed suddenly slowed down. After that, the strength of his feet became weaker and weaker. After taking a deep breath, even the sound of his heartbeat disappeared in the air. He wandered between the branches and weeds, as if he was preparing to hunt. After dozens of breaths, he stopped. A group of 5, wearing azure masks, hurriedly passed by 100 meters away. Every one of them was covered in blood, and their hair was disheveled. It can be said that the Xing Alliance actually purposely sent a small team of 10 to kill us. Damn, I didn't think that Gongsun Xing was not here. Just Wu Lei alone was so strong. He was actually able to fight with our alliance's main force, and even gained an absolute advantage in just 10 moves. Chapter 62. Dark Star. Not long after the Rain Alliance group walked past, a small group of 10 wearing blood-colored masks walked over while cursing. Did you hear the secret mission the second-in-command gave yesterday? Finish the battle with the Rain Alliance in a few days. After we go out, 3 people will take turns to challenge a new student. I don't know how this person offended the second-in-command, but this kind of new student will definitely be good for practice. Go ahead and practice. I want to find a chance to kill him. I heard that the Protector General outside has a great reward. The 10 or so people spoke one after another, but they were all talking about Long Chun. Long Chun was hidden in the shadows. When he heard that everyone from the Xing Alliance had set him as a mission target, he couldn't help but reveal a cold smile. It seemed that he didn't make a mistake coming here today. Today, he would make this so-called Xing Alliance pay a bloody price. Although the 10 people were noisy as they walked, they weren't loose. The 3 in front, 4 in the middle, and 3 in the back walked in a way that they could look after each other. Just as they were talking, the sound of a stone hitting the ground suddenly came from in front of them. Everyone's gazes subconsciously followed the sound. Who? The 10 people's faces instantly turned cold. They thought that it was the Rain Alliance's people lying in ambush. The 10 people held their swords and moved forward. However, before they could move forward, the 4 people in the middle felt a rain fall on their clothes and even on their faces. The rain was warm. No, it was blood. The 4 people in the middle who were focused on the front hurriedly turned around, only to see the 3 people in the back holding their necks and sobbing. Streams of blood spurted out from between their fingers. Their eyes were filled with shock. With a cry, the remaining 7 people discovered this terrifying scene at the same time. The 7 people's hair stood on end, and they felt as if there were icicles hanging on their backs. They were terrified. The 7 people's reactions weren't slow. They immediately stood back to back and formed a square formation. They carefully scanned every corner in all directions, wanting to find a trace. What's going on? It was only 1 or 2 breaths. How could someone directly kill the 3 of them without making a sound? The 3 of them were all at the 3rd level of the spirit martial realm. They didn't even make a sound. Is it the Rain Alliance? The Rain Alliance actually has hidden people who are proficient in assassination. The faces of the 7 people were ashen. They stood back to back, not daring to move. The fact that the 3 of them had been silently killed in an instant had left them with too much shock. Creak, creak. For a while, the surroundings slowly quieted down. Only the wind rustling the grass, the crickets chirping in the bushes, and the sweat on their heads continued to drip. Almost an hour had passed. Boss, did that person leave after seeing how guarded we are? One of them couldn't hold on any longer. It's possible. We can't go on like this. Let's be careful and move forward. The first 3 and the last 4. Don't be more than 1 meter apart. The few of them wiped the sweat off their foreheads. They only felt that it was frighteningly cold. Then, they nervously looked around and walked forward. It took the 7 of them a full quarter of an hour to travel 1,000 meters. Only then did they gradually relax. Looks like that person has left. However, we still have to be cautious. Everyone pay attention. The leader of the group let out a long sigh of relief and shouted. Sizzle. His head was abandoned. Diagonally above him, a long blade suddenly flew out and directly beheaded him. In an instant, blood gushed out like a fountain. The 6 of them screamed at the top of their lungs as they continuously retreated. 2 of them even fell on the ground and scrambled to run. It's old Forsblade. He's still following us. Run, run. After the leader died, the remaining 6 people completely fell into panic. After a few screams, they fled in all directions. However, a black shadow appeared behind them like a ghost. After an hour, Long Chun slowly walked out from a forest. The mask on his face had already turned black and blood red. It was dyed with blood. Nether blood, azura slash, dark star like eternal night. Long Chun muttered. This sentence was what his big brother, the eternal night ruler, had said in his previous life when he was besieged and killed because of him. Every time he used the way of the assassin, Long Chun would think of his big brother's figure filled with righteousness, as well as his carefree and unrestrained manner when he drank. How could a real man walk between heaven and earth and do such sneaky things? Although I'm the young master of the Dark Star organization, I don't take advantage of anyone at all. The people I want to kill are justified, and I have to kill them head on. I will never use sneak attacks. If you like the way of assassination, you can learn all of it. If we are brothers, even if I become a demon, I will fight the world. However, in this life, there is still a wine that I have not tasted. Long Chun would never forget that moment. In order to save him, his big brother, who had a heart filled with righteousness, would destroy the eternal night empire that he had single-handedly built. He would kill hundreds of thousands of innocent people and destroy his own heart to become a demon. Big brother, we will meet again on the path of immortality. Long Chen's body disappeared into the forest like a ghost. He spread out his powerful divine sense, searching for clues as he headed toward the Xing Alliance's main group. After Long Chun left for an hour, a few black-clothed elders appeared and collected the corpses. The people from the Rain Alliance are not bad this time. They actually killed 10 people from the Xing Alliance in a row. Moreover, their attacks were clean and efficient. They were all killed in one strike. This should be some kind of extremely high-end way of the assassin. Look at their expressions. They seem to have experienced a great deal of mental pressure before they died. Moreover, they didn't even have the chance to react. As they spoke, they collected the corpses and sent them out of the chaotic battlefield. Outside the 7th entrance, 10 more corpses appeared under the white cloth. The surrounding students, who had been paying attention to the 2 alliances, were all astonished. The Rain Alliance had been in a disadvantageous position for the past few days, but today they had killed 10 people from the Xing Alliance. It was truly inconceivable. However, they did not know that this was completely because they did not care about that outsider who had joined. After Long Chun killed another small group from the Xing Alliance, the sky gradually darkened. He knew that tonight was the day he would completely transform into a death god. The night was the environment that an assassin was most familiar with. Just 2 small groups had allowed him to obtain 100,000 points. It's a pity that the so-called Gongsun Xing is still in seclusion. Otherwise, this would be a good place to deal with him. By the time he came out of seclusion, the entire Punishment Alliance was already finished. Long Chen's figure disappeared into the darkness. He gradually moved toward the Xing Alliance's main group, who had already discovered his tracks. At this moment, the Xing Alliance had completely surrounded the Rain Alliance in a mountain range. Victory was in sight. Marshal Thunder, who was at the center of the Xing Alliance, looked at the shattered jade tablet in his hand and said in a low voice, "Everyone be careful. Seal off the 4 sides and be wary of the remaining Rain Alliance troops outside." Chapter 63. Unsolvable Assassination. The Punishment Alliance was divided into 4 groups and completely surrounded the Rain Alliance in a mountain range. Each group had around 20 to 30 people. If this was the outside world, Long Chun wouldn't be able to kill all of them, even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. However, with the Tao of Assassination, it wasn't impossible. The attack will begin tomorrow night. This time, the Blue Lotus throne in the hands of the Rain Alliance will fall into the hands of our Punishment Alliance. I really hope the Rain Alliance doesn't surrender tomorrow. That way, we can kill to our heart's content and get 20,000 points. That's right. If the Blue Lotus throne wasn't so precious, the Alliance Master wouldn't have started this war. The three members of the Criminal Alliance walked together. As they spoke, they separated from a group and walked more than 10 meters behind them. However, they didn't know that they had already been targeted by Long Chun. Just as the three of them undid their pants, a black light slit their throats. Long Chun quickly picked up their jade tokens and disappeared. The sword in his hand was wrapped in a layer of black cloth. Only the tip of the sword was half an inch out. The Punishment Alliance is quite disciplined. They even need 3 people to go to the toilet together. However, this actually makes things much more convenient for me. Long Chun quickly left. After a few breaths of time, cries of alarm could be heard. It seemed that the Punishment Alliance members had discovered the 3 dead members. At this moment, Long Chun was already rushing towards the second group of Punishment Alliance members. With his powerful divine sense, he was like a fish in water in the dark. He was confident that he could kill any spirit martial realm cultivator under the demigod realm. Time passed minute by minute and second by second. Cries of alarm could be heard from the mountain range guarded by the Punishment Alliance. More and more people died unnatural deaths. Long Chun was like a demon in the night, reaping life after life. He didn't show any mercy to these people because he knew that once they left the battlefield, they would become his enemies. Long Chun was never merciful to his enemies. In his previous life, he had already experienced the pain and consequences of being merciful. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to step into the sovereign realm. On the other side, Marshal Thunder's face was terrifyingly gloomy as he watched more and more jade tokens shatter in his hand. In a single night, a total of 30 people from the Punishment Alliance had died. They, who had always been in an advantageous position against the Rain Alliance, were now in a completely passive state. This was especially true for the remaining members of the Criminal Alliance, who were already in a state of panic. This was because they didn't even know what the enemy looked like after losing 30 men. Quit, I want to quit. Leave his place. Finally, one of the young men broke down. He took off his mask and ran towards the exit. Marshal Thunder's face turned cold. He leaped forward and killed the man with a single slash. Whoever dares to retreat without a fight will not be able to walk out of this chaotic battlefield today. Marshal Thunder's powerful aura and the image of a dragon and elephant slowly rising behind him intimidated everyone. The entire Punishment Alliance fell silent, but the fear in their hearts did not decrease in the slightest. Although Marshal Thunder had suppressed everyone with his martial power, he knew that there was almost no hope of victory in this battle against the Rain Alliance because the members of the Xing Alliance had completely lost their will to fight. Pass down my orders. Negotiate with the Rain Alliance. We'll each take half of the Blue Lotus platform. After a short moment of silence, Marshal Thunder finally made his decision. When the members of the Criminal Alliance heard the word negotiate, they thought of the demon-like assassination attempt yesterday and felt as if a boulder had been lifted from their hearts. Behind a huge rock 100 meters away, Long Chun concealed his aura and heard everything with his divine sense. After an hour, the members of the Rain Alliance, who had originally planned on giving up the Blue Lotus platform, were astonished when they heard the Criminal Alliance take the initiative to negotiate. They immediately agreed. Giving out half of the Blue Lotus platform is the same as handing over half of the mission reward. Although he agreed to the terms of the Criminal Alliance, the Rain Alliance's Alliance Master, Chiao Chuyun, still felt the pinch. The Blue Lotus platform was one of the missions given by the Academy Alliance. The mission reward was 2 million points. Although Chiao Chuyun felt the pinch, the members of the Rain Alliance didn't care. 2 million points was already a lot for an alliance like this, but at least a fifth of it was taken by the Alliance Master and a few core members. The remaining points were split equally among the members. Now that the two alliances were clearly at a disadvantage against the Criminal Alliance, They weren't willing to continue fighting for 7,000 to 8,000 points each. On the mountain peak, the two alliances stood on opposite sides of each other in fear. The members of the Criminal Alliance also discovered that the Criminal Alliance, which had been like a tiger 2 days ago, was now like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. Xiao Chuyun, I didn't think that you would have such a strong subordinate. Today, my Criminal Alliance admits defeat. Marshal Lei Jiang put away half of the Blue Lotus platform and stared at Xiao Chuyun. Xiao Chuyun was stunned. He didn't know what Martial Thunder meant, but he didn't back down. Although my Criminal Alliance isn't as good as the Criminal Alliance, if you want to eat us, you'll have to lose a piece of meat. Martial Thunder coldly glanced at Xiao Chuyun. In the end, he coldly snorted and left. The battle between the two alliances was originally in full swing, but after Long Chun entered the fray, the battle ceased on the second day. Unfortunately, things didn't end there. After the two sides reached an agreement, the members of the Xing Alliance let down their guard. Under Martial Thunder's lead, they walked out of the battlefield. Suddenly, a series of miserable cries rang out. The last few people to leave had their throats slit. The devil is here again. The Rain Alliance went back on their word. That demon is starting to kill people again. The entire Xing Alliance was thrown into a state of panic, and cries of fear could be heard from the forest. Martial Thunder's expression was as cold as ice. He looked at the Criminal Alliance in the distance and coldly said, Xiao Chuyun, do you really want to fight to the death? If it wasn't for this person's proficiency in the Tao of Time, killing you would be as easy as slaughtering a dog. At this moment, Xiao Chuyun was completely dumbfounded. He looked at the members of the Criminal Alliance behind him and was also confused. As the members of the Xing Alliance fled in panic, screams of agony rang out from all around them. Everyone gathered and moved to an open area. Burn the surrounding forest. Martial Thunder roared when he saw that nearly 10 people had died in the blink of an eye. Xiao Chuyun, are you trying to kill us all? Martial Thunder's expression was malevolent. He was certain that the assassin was from the Criminal Alliance. In a battle between two alliances, it wouldn't be a big deal if the assassin killed them randomly. However, since all of the Criminal Alliance members had died, the result was obvious. Xiao Chuyun's expression changed when he saw Martial Thunder and the other Criminal Alliance members retreat to the center of the forest and even set the nearby forest on fire. This method was simply cutting off their own path of retreat. Martial Thunder wanted to fight the Criminal Alliance to the death. Chapter 64. The destruction of the Xing Alliance in the Royal School's Western District. More and more corpses appeared at the seventh entrance of the chaotic battleground. One by one, the guards of the school gathered. One of the elders in charge of the seventh chaotic battleground said in a deep voice, How did this happen? It's only been one night, and the Xing Alliance has lost another dozen members. Send someone in to see what the Xing Alliance and Rain Alliance are doing. As he spoke, two middle-aged men in black robes rushed into the seventh chaotic battleground. Although it was allowed for the various alliances to fight and kill each other, it was still strange for the same alliance to lose so many people in a single day. More and more people gathered around to watch. They stared at the corpses covered in white cloth with shock. Although everyone was wearing masks, their expressions were still very interesting. After all, the Xing Alliance and Rain Alliance had a huge advantage in the battle. However, the Xing Alliance had lost so many people in a single day. Looks like the Rain Alliance has a hidden expert. He was actually able to heavily injure the Xing Alliance. So what? The final result won't change. Martial Thunder's cultivation is definitely not something that Xiao Chuyun can defeat. That's right. The Xing Alliance's strength is enough to be ranked first amongst the primary students. This time, Gongsun Xing is in seclusion. If he comes out, the Rain Alliance won't dare to fight. Everyone was discussing fervently. When they talked about Gongsun Xing, there was a hint of admiration in their voices. After a while, the two middle-aged men in black robes returned from their investigation. However, they were all covered in dirt. The two alliances seemed to be in a state of war. I don't know why they set the forest on fire. Although the fire doesn't seem to be spreading, We have no way of knowing what's going on inside. I've observed for a while. The fire will burn for at most 2 days. When the time comes, their battle will be over. We'll clean it up together then." Hearing that the two alliances had set the forest on fire, more and more people gathered around. The students who were originally preparing to enter other areas also chose to watch the show. They wanted to see who would win this battle between the Xing Alliance and the Rain Alliance. The towering forest fire emitted a scorching aura. As the flames danced, sparks flew everywhere. It was as if gray rain was falling from the sky. After the two alliances started fighting, hundreds of people started fighting. The scene was extremely chaotic as people ran in all directions. Martial thunder directly clashed with Qiu Chuyan. Both of their cultivations were extraordinary, and every punch and kick carried the might of lightning. The hinterland of the mountain stream was rugged and chaotic. Very quickly, people began to notice that the number of people from the Punishment Alliance was dwindling. Often, when two people were fighting, there would be a flash of light, and in the blink of an eye, the opponent's throat would be slit. The Rain Alliance's advantage grew larger and larger, and the Punishment Alliance's members died one after another. Originally, the Rain Alliance's members thought that their comrades had helped them during the fight, but they quickly discovered that this wasn't the case. In just a few short hours, the ground was littered with corpses. Every single member of the Punishment Alliance had their throats slit. At this moment, the members of the Rain Alliance were gathered together. Their faces were filled with shock, and the weapons in their hands could not help but tremble. This scene was too strange. Even if they were idiots, they could tell that something was wrong. The members of the Xing Alliance had died too quickly. Moreover, all of them were killed in an instant. Even the members of the Rain Alliance who were fighting against them did not know who did it. The sky was filled with fire, and smoke and dust covered the sky, but everyone felt cold all over. They were afraid that a sword would come out of nowhere and chop off their heads. Long Chun, who was in the middle of the Rain Alliance's members, revealed a smile under his mask. Now, the Punishment Alliance's members had all been killed, and he was only wearing a Rain Alliance's mask that he had picked up from the ground. Bang, bang, bang. Just as everyone was bewildered, a series of loud sounds came from the mountain stream. Only then did everyone realize that Martial Thunder was still fighting with Qiu Chuyan. Soon after, the members of the Rain Alliance immediately charged into the mountain stream, and Long Chun was among them. If Martial Thunder died at the hand of the Rain Alliance, then he would not have to waste any more energy to deal with them. He could simply choose an opportunity to leave. After all, his target was the Punishment Alliance. Unfortunately, he soon revealed a bitter smile, because the situation was not as simple as he thought. The remaining members of the Rain Alliance stared ahead, and all of them revealed expressions of fear. They looked at each other and did not know what to do. This was because at this moment, Qiu Chuyan's head was already under Martial Thunder's foot. If Qiu Chuyan did not die, then Martial Thunder would definitely be defeated when these people arrived. However, now that Qiu Chuyan was dead, the level 6 Ling-Wujing Martial Thunder relied on his powerful strength to kill everyone present. At level 6 Ling-Wujing, he had opened 6 major acupoints in his body, producing the strength of 6 dragon elephants and a single punch of 6,000 Jin. Although there were only a few dozen members of the Rain Alliance left, the person with the highest cultivation was only at the peak of level 4 spiritual martial realm, and the strength of a single punch did not even reach 5,000 Jin. In other words, no one present was a match for Martial Thunder. As long as Martial Thunder nimbly used his movement skills to avoid being surrounded, everyone present would definitely die. Originally, if they fought with their lives on the line, they had a 30% chance of killing Martial Thunder. However, Long Chun felt that it was not even 10% because they did not have the courage to fight against the level 6 Ling-Wujing Martial Thunder. However, Martial Thunder's expression was extremely ugly. He never thought that in just a few hours, the entire Punishment Alliance would be annihilated, while half of the Rain Alliance's members were still alive. How could this be? Martial Thunder roared, his eyes filled with malevolence and madness. Originally, the Punishment Alliance was determined to obtain the Blue Lotus throne, but now he was the only one left. Martial Thunder walked forward step by step, while the remaining members of the Rain Alliance retreated step by step. Unfortunately, there was a sea of fire 1,000 meters away, and it was impossible for them to leave this chaotic place in a short amount of time. When Martial Thunder saw the corpses of the Punishment Alliance's members, his eyes flashed, and he involuntarily cried out. They were all killed in one strike. For a moment, Martial Thunder felt a chill run down his spine, as if there was a pair of eyes staring at him. After a moment, he fiercely shook his head. Seeing that the surroundings were empty, he coldly said to the members of the Rain Alliance in front of him, "Today, none of you will be able to escape." With a roar, 6 phantoms of draconic elephants covered the sky. The members of the Rain Alliance were all terrified and scattered in all directions. Seeing this, Martial Thunder's smile grew even wider. As long as this group of people did not have the will to fight, it would not be difficult to kill them. However, Long Chun stood in place without any intention of leaving. At some point in time, he had changed his mask back. "It's you? Just who are you? Why are you targeting my Punishment Alliance?" Martial Thunder stared at Long Chun and the long sword in his hand with an unprecedented seriousness. However, Long Chun laughed and calmly said, "A few days ago, your Punishment Alliance was ordered by the Jinyuan General to kill me. Today, I am merely collecting some interest." Chapter 65. Dragon-slaying thunder. Sweat dripped from Martial Thunder's forehead, but his body was cold. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that the person who had caused the Punishment Alliance to retreat in defeat over the past 2 days was actually Long Chun. According to the news from the Jinyuan General, you're only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. How can you have such strength? Martial Thunder took a deep breath. Although the Xing League was formed by Gongsun Xing, it was actually backed by the General Jinyuan Mansion. Ever since they found out that Long Chun had killed the son of the Jinyuan General, Long Chun had become the Xing League's top priority. According to Martial Thunder's knowledge, the Crown Prince also wanted Long Chun's life. Long Chun did not reply. Although he was only at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm, he had the strength of 6,000 Jin in a single punch. Relying on his martial skills, he could fight against the level 6 Ling Wujing Martial Thunder. In reality, Long Chun could have followed the Rain League members to escape and then assassinated them. With his skill in assassination, even if Martial Thunder was extremely vigilant, he would still die at night. However, Long Chun chose to fight them head-on. Firstly, he wanted to test his current strength. Secondly, he did not want to waste any more time. He had already accumulated more than 100,000 points, enough to exchange for a large amount of resources. To Long Chun, increasing his cultivation was the most important thing. He even planned to exchange all his points for spiritual medicine and then personally refine them into pills to maximize their effects. After a short moment of shock, Martial Thunder took a deep breath and stared at Long Chun. He said in a low voice, "The information from the General Jinyuan Mansion can't be wrong. It's impossible for you to have a breakthrough in your cultivation in such a short time. In other words, you're only proficient in assassination." According to the information he received, Long Chun was only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. He was only 16 years old. Martial Thunder secretly thought that Long Chun was too young. If he continued to hide and wait for an opportunity to strike, it would be extremely troublesome. However, he was not afraid of Long Chun in a direct confrontation. However, Long Chun did not want to talk to him. The long sword in his hand whistled and streaked across the sky. In the blink of an eye, it fell towards Wu Lei. Long Chun had used all of his physical strength in this attack without using any martial arts techniques. He wanted to see the difference between his physical strength and an ordinary level 6 Ling Wujing's. Martial Thunder was stunned. He did not expect Long Chun to be so tough. He shouted coldly, "You're courting death. How dare you compete with me in terms of strength?" The level 6 Ling Wujing Martial Thunder immediately slashed down with a silver-ringed broadsword in his hand. His immense strength seemed to be able to cut the air in half, bringing about gusts of wind. His powerful strength was fully displayed. Crack! The sword and the broadsword clashed. Both of them wanted to test each other's strength. However, Martial Thunder's expression changed drastically. He stared at Long Chen's back as if he had seen a monster. He exclaimed, How? How is this possible? You've only condensed 3 dragon elephant shadows. How can your attack be on par with mine? A warrior at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm was on par with an expert at level 6 languaging. If this attack was spread out, it would probably cause a huge uproar. One must know that every level of the spiritual martial realm had a difference of 1,000 pounds of strength. If one excluded the difference in martial arts techniques, the difference of 1,000 pounds of strength alone would be an insurmountable gap. Long Chun was 3 levels below Martial Thunder. If his martial arts techniques were exquisite, it would be understandable even though he was a genius. However, he was using his strength to fight against Martial Thunder. Martial Thunder's disdain collapsed instantly. A warrior at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm had the strength of a warrior at the 6th level. This kind of genius made him feel terrified. I've indeed underestimated you. With your talent, I'm afraid it would be difficult to find a second person like you in the Imperial School. However, if you want to rely on this to win against me, it's still far from enough. Martial Thunder stared at Long Chun coldly. He waved the broadsword in his right hand again. A scorching aura rose up and down on the blade, emitting bursts of red light. It was as if it was burning. 8th level spiritual martial technique, Flame Chain Slash. Although Martial Thunder was surprised by Long Chen's strength, he believed that with his martial arts techniques, Long Chun would not be able to defeat him. After all, he was only 16 years old. Moreover, Iron Mountain City was a remote city. How could it be compared to the Imperial capital? An 8th grade spirit rank saber art was enough to crush Long Chun. The long saber followed like a shadow, like a red-hot soldering iron, but Long Chun still stood in the same place without saying a word. The wind champ purple vein sword in his hand suddenly rose to meet the saber head-on, and gusts of wind swept out, covering the sky and covering the earth. King level sword technique, Imperial wind sword technique. Boom, boom, boom. The sword light scattered like a gust of wind, pouring out in torrents. Martial Thunder's broadsword shadow was shattered inch by inch, and the flame chain slash was broken in an instant. Poochie! A ghastly wound appeared on Martial Thunder's chest. His eyes were wide open, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He knelt on the ground with one knee. This is a king-level martial technique. A king-level martial technique that has reached the perfection stage. How is this possible? How old are you? Martial Thunder only now knew how terrifying Long Chun was. This attack made him completely collapse. A 16-year-old boy who was only at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm was not at a disadvantage in terms of strength. He also used a king-level martial technique to defeat him. This was simply a monster. Long Chun looked at Martial Thunder and thought that with his king-level martial technique, he would only be able to fight against Martial Thunder at the 7th or 8th level of the spiritual martial realm. After all, although he was only at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm, he actually had strength close to the 6th level of the mortal martial realm. If I can gather the strength of a few more Dracophants and rely on a king-level martial technique, I will be the strongest person under the soul formation stage. According to the chaotic golden canon, if I gather the strength of 36 Dracophants, I will be able to fight against a soul formation stage expert. 36 Dracophants was equivalent to 36,000 pounds of strength. This strength was already comparable to an ancient demon beast. Long Chun could not even imagine what it would be like to enter the soul formation stage with such a body. Seeing Long Chun slowly walking over with his sword, Martial Thunder felt the impending death. He roared, I will wait for you. When Gongsun Xing comes out of seclusion, you will die. You have angered the Jinyuan general and the eldest prince. Only death awaits you. Slash. Long Chun was not moved at all. He killed Martial Thunder with one strike. Then he casually picked up Martial Thunder's storage ring and quickly left. Since Gongsun Xing was the leader of the Xing League, his cultivation must be above martial thunders. Now that he was about to break through, once he came out of seclusion, his cultivation would not be lower than the 8th level of the spiritual martial realm. After thinking about it, Long Chun thought that he had to break through as soon as possible. After all, his opponent was not only Gongsun Xing, but also the General Jinyuan mansion. The fire continued, and the survivors were all trapped in the mountain stream. The members of the Rain League were all frightened. They were afraid that martial thunder would come and kill them, so they hid everywhere. However, even when the fire dissipated, martial thunder did not appear. The entire field seemed to have stopped fighting. Martial thunder is dead. Chapter 66. The Assassin After the Fire Dispersed. Long Chun immediately left the 7th chaotic ground. At this moment, the mask on his face had already turned black due to the dried blood. Long Chun was the first to rush out. The surrounding people glanced at him but didn't pay him any attention. However, the guard and a few others raised their eyebrows. This guy actually survived. His luck isn't bad. He went in during the final battle between the two alliances. Now that he's able to walk out, he might have really gotten some points. However, no one cared. They only wanted to know if the Rain Alliance or the Rain Alliance was the winner. However, what happened next stunned everyone. 2 black-robed, middle-aged men walked out with heavy expressions. With a flash of light in their hands, they threw the corpses to the side. 1 corpse, 2 corpses. The Rain Alliance had a total of 197 people. They were all annihilated. As his voice fell, the corpses were brought out from the entrance. The surrounding people immediately fell into chaos. No one expected the Rain Alliance to lose and be completely annihilated. The Rain Alliance actually had such strength. However, the words of the 2 guards dropped another bomb. The Rain Alliance's Chiu Chuyan was also dead. The Rain Alliance only had 33 people left. In other words, after this battle, the Rain Alliance and the Rain Alliance would no longer exist. Doesn't that mean the Blue Lotus throne fell into the hands of the Rain Alliance? That's worth millions of points. No, look at these corpses. They were all killed with a single slash. Xiao Chuyan definitely couldn't have done that. Look, the Rain Alliance's people came out. After the Rain Alliance's people came out, they were instantly surrounded by the crowd. Even a few elders walked over and asked in confusion, "Who among you was able to kill Martial Thunder and have such a sword technique?" The Rain Alliance's people subconsciously looked at the corpses. Soon after, their expressions were the same. They couldn't help but shiver. They shook their heads and recounted everything that had happened. You're saying that there was a person who was proficient in the art of assassination that killed all the Rain Alliance's people. Even Martial Thunder died at his hands? An elder cried out in shock. Soon after, there were even some elders who didn't believe it at all. They directly checked everyone one by one and then shook their heads. These people's cultivation levels were too low. That's not right. Apart from the 2 alliances, there's another person who went in. A figure suddenly appeared in everyone's mind. On the other side, Long Chun returned to his residence as soon as he left and coincidentally bumped into Yin Li, who had just returned from class. Yin Li let out a long sigh of relief when she saw Long Chun. She patted her towering chest and said, "I didn't think you'd be able to return safely. At least you still have some brains and didn't enter the battlefield between the Punishment Alliance and the Rain Alliance." Upon seeing Long Chun's return, Yin Li's first reaction was that although Long Chun had won the Battle Royale, he hadn't entered the 7th arena. After all, it wasn't realistic for him to escape unscathed from the entire Justice Alliance. Without waiting for Long Chun's reply, Yin Li's expression turned serious. She put on the appearance of a teacher and said, "You haven't attended any of the classes for the past few days. You can't go on like this. It's fine if you don't attend the other classes, but you can't keep missing the martial arts class." Long Chun nodded in agreement. However, he didn't express any opinion in his heart. If there was one thing that he didn't need to learn, it would be martial arts. Long Chun thought about the points he had earned and asked Yin Li, "Do you need anything?" Last time, I'll lend you 3,000 points, and I've troubled you during this period of time. Now, I have plenty of points on hand." Yenli smiled when she heard this. She seemed to be in a better mood. She smiled and said, "How many points do you have on hand? Return it to me. You should focus on improving your own cultivation. This way, the trip to Death Spirit Mountain Range will be safer." Long Chun smiled when he heard this. He didn't expose her and only replied, "How about this? I don't know much about the academy. If you have nothing to do tomorrow, you can come with me to exchange for some elixirs, pills, and other resources. At that time, if you need anything, I could buy it all together." Yenli secretly praised Long Chun for his thoughtfulness. She thought about how she didn't have any classes tomorrow and nodded in agreement. The two of them talked and laughed as they walked through the door. Then, they returned to their respective rooms. When they saw Long Chin's door close, they couldn't help but shake their heads and chuckle. They felt that Long Chun really didn't seem like a 16 or 17-year-old youth. In the room, after Long Chun freshened up, he glanced at the number on his jade token. It had already reached an astonishing 1 million points. 1 million points. This was equivalent to an alliance completing an alliance mission. Long Chun smiled with satisfaction. Then he looked at the elixir in his storage ring that had been split in two. It was the 9th grade Blue Lotus Throne. "I killed dozens of people and obtained 200,000 to 300,000 points. Later, I obtained nearly 700,000 points from Wu Lei and many spirit-grade pills." Long Chen muttered to himself. It wasn't strange for Wu Lei to have so many pills and points. After all, he killed Qiu Chuyun and must have looted everything in his storage ring. With Qiu Chuyun's position as the leader of the Cloud and Rain Alliance, these things were really too little. Moreover, some of them were even Wu Lei's own. However, Long Chun quickly felt relieved. After all, Wu Lei was only the second in command. The two of them together had quite a lot of things. There aren't many opportunities to obtain points like this. I'm not in a hurry to hand in the 9th grade Blue Lotus Throne mission. Perhaps there are other uses for it. Long Chun did a rough calculation. Just the points he had on hand were close to 1 million. It was enough for him to exchange for a large amount of resources. It shouldn't be a problem for him to open a few more major acupuncture points in a short period of time. After thinking for a moment, Long Chun directly swallowed the spirit-grade pill in his hand. The 4th major acupuncture point in his body was already on the verge of breaking through. He should be able to condense the strength of the 4th dragon elephant before tomorrow. On the other side, the news of the corpses being transported out of the chaotic lands caused the entire royal school to be in an uproar. The strongest junior disciple Xing Alliance and the slightly weaker Rain Alliance were actually completely annihilated in a single night. More than 100 core members were all killed with a single slash. Even the Rain Alliance only had a few dozen members left. Both alliances were disbanded at the same time. The news of a person who was nicknamed the Assassin quickly spread throughout the royal school. Do you guys think that it could be some intermediate disciple who practices the way of the Assassin and entered the chaotic lands in disguise? Otherwise, how could such a terrifying thing happen? No. The people at the entrance of the 7th arena said that a youth wearing a silver mask entered. He should be a junior disciple who is proficient in the way of the Assassin. However, it said that when he came out, the mask on his face had already turned dark red. It's very terrifying. Gongsun Xing is still in closed-door training. At most, he'll be out in 10 days. At that time, he'll become an intermediate disciple. Moreover, it said that he's practicing a king-level sword skill during his closed-door training and is about to enter the transformation stage. If he's really a junior disciple, I'm afraid he's not far from death. Chapter 67. Enlightenment Pill. The next day, a cold gaze rose. Yenli knocked on Long Chen's ancient wooden house early, and Long Chun quickly came out. Seeing that Long Chun was alone, Yenli finally couldn't help but ask, "Where's that lovely maid of yours? Why haven't I seen her these past few days?" Long Chun frowned and said, "She went home. She won't see you again until a few days later." Although Long Chun said this, he also missed Qing Xian very much. They had been inseparable since they were young. If he hadn't lived another life, he would have been in great pain. Seeing that Long Chun didn't want to say more, Yinli didn't ask anymore. She just thought that Qing Xian had returned to Iron Mountain City. The two of them arrived at the Elixir Pavilion one after another. The pills here are all refined by the alchemists of the Pill Tower in the southern part of the imperial capital. However, there are only mortal tier grade 1 to grade 6 spirit tier pills. If you want higher grade pills, you'll have to personally head to the Pill Tower to purchase them. Yinli led Long Chun into the Pill Pavilion and casually explained. Long Chun was stunned when he heard this. He secretly thought that the Pill Pagoda's position in the Empire was not low. Monopolizing high-grade pills like this was already challenging the authority of the Imperial Academy. However, Yin Li's words made Long Chun completely lose interest in the pills in the damn pavilion. Now that he had enough points to buy pills, he naturally had to choose high-grade pills. Only then could he get twice the result with half the effort. However, Long Chun did not turn around and leave. Instead, he followed behind Yin Li. Since he was already here, there was no harm in taking a look. If he came across some good medicinal pills, he could buy some and give them to Yin Li to repay her kindness. You should have 10 or 20,000 points on hand right now. It's not a bad idea to buy some mortal tier level 8 or level 9 medicinal pills to stabilize your strength. After entering the building, a long-bearded old man with messy hair and a sunken nose was lying on a long platform. He was casually exchanging points with the students in front of the platform for elixirs. The surrounding students were all impatient, but they could only swallow their anger. Master Shangwan, why did you drink so much wine again? Yinli walked up to the old man with a frown when she saw him. The old man saw a trace of brilliance appear on Yin Li's sloppy face. His eyes also brightened a little as he replied, "Little girl, come, help me distribute the medicinal pills that these bastards bought." Yin Li sighed. Seeing that Long Chun didn't say anything, she hurriedly walked forward and finished deducting the points from the various academies one by one. She also recorded the medicinal pills in the records. After a long while, the old man muttered, "Little girl, you're here to exchange for medicinal pills, right? However, you'd better not go up to the second floor of the pavilion today. That mean girl is up there." Mean girl? Long Chun didn't know who the old man was talking about, but he saw Yin Li's face darken. "Thank you for your reminder, Master Shangwan. We only plan to buy some mortal tier medicinal pills. There's no need to go up to the second floor." Yin Li said, "That's for the best." When the old man heard this, he nodded his head and went back to his seat on the long platform. Long Chun strolled around the first floor under Yin Li's lead. There were rows of bookshelves on the high platform with countless square boxes. Within the square boxes were bottles of medicinal pills. On the top of the medicinal pills were the grades, effects, and exchange points. After walking for a long time, Long Chun really didn't see a single pill that caught his eye. He was currently at the 4th level of the spirit tier and had awakened the strength of 4 dragon elephants. If he wanted to use mortal tier medicinal pills to break through, he would need an extremely large number. Moreover, he could also see that Yin Li didn't have any desire for mortal tier medicinal pills. She was just accompanying him. However, Long Chun noticed that she would occasionally look at the second floor and then look at the medicinal pills in front of her before finally putting them down. Presumably, the second floor should have the spirit tier medicinal pills that he needed. Long Chun hesitated for a moment and said indifferently, "Why don't we go to the second floor to take a look?" Without waiting for Yin Li to respond, Long Chun directly pulled her by the arm and led her to the stairs at the side. Yin Li lightly bit her lower lip. Seeing that they had already walked up the stairs, she didn't say anything else. The second floor of the Pill Pavilion was overflowing with fragrance. Clearly, the grade of the medicinal pills far surpassed the mortal tier medicinal pills below. "Greetings, Teacher Yin Li." Some students saw Yin Li and cupped their fists to greet her. "Yin Li?" At this moment, a coquettish laugh came from a corner not far away. A gorgeously dressed woman in a short blouse with her navel exposed walked over while swaying her waist. The woman's appearance wasn't bad. There wasn't much difference between her and Yin Li. However, it was completely different from Yin Li's serious and strong temperament. The woman's body overflowed with charm as she walked. Her snow-white chest was unscrupulously exposed. She even deliberately lowered it a bit, attracting the surrounding people to secretly look at her. Behind her was a burly man who was like a small mountain. His muscles were bulging and filled with a masculine aura. As the man walked forward, he even heavily patted the woman's waist without leaving a trace. His eyes were full of lust. "Junior sister, I haven't seen you for a long time. A while ago, Master even asked me to bring you back." The loose woman's breath was like orchids. Although her words were directed at Yen Li, her eyes were staring straight at Long Chun. "Junior sister, you're enlightened. Is this your lover? If you listened to senior sister's advice and serve a few more students, you would have bought the enlightenment pill on the second floor long ago. However, your lover looks like a pretty boy. What do you think of the son of a second-rank official that I recommended to you last time? His skills in bed are amazing. He will definitely serve you until you want to die." "Ha!" Yinli didn't say a word. Her face was ashen. Her strong personality seemed to have completely disappeared. She pulled Long Chun and wanted to escape in the other direction. When the surrounding people heard the woman's words, their faces turned red. They even thought that if Yin Li was willing, not to mention points, they would even sell their family property to get close to her. Enlightenment pill? Although the woman's words were filthy, Long Chen's heart was still as water after his rebirth. This woman was also Yin Li's senior sister. Their relationship was complicated, so he pretended not to hear it. However, he was somewhat interested in the enlightenment pill that she mentioned. The enlightenment pill was a 6th-rank spirit tier pill. Although this pill's grade wasn't high, it was very difficult to refine. Moreover, the materials required were also very rare. Its effect could allow one's mind to be clear and their divine sense to wander, entering a state of enlightenment. This pill was really useless to ordinary people. However, to those who needed it, it was a priceless treasure. Long Chen also quickly saw the so-called enlightenment pill. This pill was actually one of the treasures of the second-floor pill pavilion. It could be exchanged for 100,000 points. On both sides of the enlightenment pill were bottles of rising sky pill and giant spirit pill. "Oh, looking again. Junior sister, look at the person beside me. He said that as long as you accompany him for a night, he will bring the enlightenment pill to you right now." Chapter 68. Chapter 68 Noisy. Inside the second-level pill pavilion, Yinli finally could not hold back anymore. Her delicate body began to tremble as she angrily shouted, "Senior apprentice, Sister Miao Yin, if you continue to speak filthy words, don't blame me for disregarding the relationship between us. Junior sister, look at this man's body. I can definitely make you Papa." Before the voice of the woman called Miao Yin fell, she felt a blur in front of her eyes. Her face suddenly felt hot. Half of her charming face suddenly became red and swollen, and her lips were full of blood. The woman's voice stopped abruptly, and the surroundings seemed to fall silent. "Ah!" An extremely sharp and ear-piercing voice came from Miao Yin's mouth. When everyone came to their senses, they realized that Long Chun, who had been silent all this while, was standing in front of the woman. He was the one who had slapped her. For some reason, the surrounding students also felt that this slap was very satisfying, as if they were swatting a fly. It was very comfortable. You dare to hit me. You gigolo. Noisy. Papa. Bang. Long Chun looked at the woman coldly and slapped her so hard that she flew a few meters and crashed into the wall. The woman's hair was disheveled. Other than her loose waist, there was no other trace of beauty. She was simply like a crazy woman on the street. "You, help me kill him, kill him." Sweet Sound whimpered. Her swollen face was already somewhat speechless. The burly man in front of him couldn't help but frown as he looked at Long Chun. Long Chun's speed just now was really fast. His series of moves were also as fast as lightning. Even he couldn't react in time. "Sir, aren't you being too arrogant? Why don't you apologize to the second young master of the Ministry of Justice? This burly man could clearly see that Long Chun was not someone to be trifled with, so he wanted to use his family name to smooth things over, so that Long Chun would know when to stop and find a way out. Scram, you think you're worthy? Long Chen's eyes were as cold as lightning. The aura around him suddenly dispersed, and his divine sense swept out in all directions. The burly man's face suddenly turned pale. He only felt that Long Chen's figure was infinitely tall, as if he was a supreme being who looked down on everything. The people around him couldn't help but take a step back. Yanli also covered her mouth in shock. Long Chen's actions and his current cold temperament caused her to be stunned. I will remember you. Second young master Xiang knows very well that he is not Long Chen's match at all. After saying these harsh words, he directly picks up Miao Yin, who is on the wall, and rushes out of the second floor of the damn pavilion. You useless thing. I've already been beaten to such a state, and you're running away? Go fight him in the fringe. Kill him. After leaving the damn pavilion, Miao Yin touches her swollen face and immediately yells at the Xiang family's second young master. Second young master Xiang also feels that he has lost a lot of face today. However, when facing Long Chun at that time, he really can't summon a trace of fighting spirit. Moreover, with Long Chen's speed and body movement just now, he knows that he is no match for him. Miao Yin, don't worry. Although this person's strength is not bad, he is still far from my brother. Now my brother is preparing for a joint teacher mission in 10 days. When he comes back from that cave residence, I will find him to deal with this person. Your brother Xiang Yun is also going to that cave residence in a few days? I know that bitch also issued that mission as a teacher. That guy should be the person she found. Oh, that's even better. I will tell my brother to kill him in the Death Mountain Range. If Long Chun knows that in the trip to the Death Mountain Range in a few days, in addition to Fong Chun of the Purple Jade restaurant a few days ago, there's now Xiang Yun eyeing him, he will certainly smile bitterly. Femme Fatale is just like this. On the second floor of the Dan Pavilion, Long Chen's actions shocked the surrounding people. Seeing Miao Yin and Yanli leave, the surrounding people are also afraid of getting into trouble. They take a deep look at Long Chun and quickly leave. For a while, only Long Chun and Yanli are left on the second floor of the Dan Pavilion. Yanli stares at Long Chun with a very complicated expression, but the gratitude is self-evident. Miao Yin is her senior sister and Oh Yezi's disciple. However, her cultivation is very ordinary, so she only enters the academy as a maid. This is also the reason why Long Chun didn't have the slightest scruple. Although Yin Li is a teacher, her cultivation is only at the late stage of the spirit martial realm. After all, she majored in the Tao of Array. However, if she doesn't care about the feelings between fellow disciples, with her strength, the two people just now are not her opponents, and Long Chun won't have to make a move. Thank you for today. Yanli shook her head fiercely, as if she wants to forget a lot of troubles, and then said gratefully to Long Chun. Long Chun nodded, but said to himself, your senior sister only has a body of skin. Whether it is aptitude or spiritual sense, they are extremely poor. How can she be chosen by your master to practice array? As his voice fell, the painful expression on Yin Li's face was all captured by him, and he suddenly understood. Body. She was born with a good body of skin. It seems that the so-called array master O Yezi is just a person who deceives the world, and Yanli has been staying in the Imperial Academy for some other reason. Seeing that Yanli didn't say much, Long Chun didn't ask anymore. After all, this is Yin Li's private matter. He slowly walked forward and took down the enlightenment pill from the central pill shelf. Long Chun, what are you doing? Quickly put it back. This pill is worth 100,000 points. I can't afford it. Yin Li hurriedly said. Long Chun smiled. Not only did his hands not stop, but he also took down the other 2 bottles of Rising Sky pill and Giant Spirit pill. These 3 bottles of medicinal pills were worth a full 300,000 points. Yin Li looked at Long Chun's actions and was quite frightened. She hurriedly pulled him back and said in a low voice, You're not thinking of stealing the pills, right? Long Chen looked at Yin Li's serious but pretty face and couldn't help but want to laugh. He directly threw the points jade from his waist into her hand. "Let's go. I'll give this pill to you, but help me apply for leave for the rest of the class," Long Chen said as he walked down the stairs, leaving Yin Li staring blankly at the points jade in her hand. A total of more than 1,000,000 points. Yin Li couldn't help but pinch her round thigh. She simply felt that she was dreaming. Seeing that Long Chen had already walked down the stairs, she hurriedly followed him. I can't accept this thing. It's too expensive." Yin Li followed behind Long Chen and hurriedly cried out. Long Chen completely ignored her and directly threw the enlightenment pill in front of the old man, holding the shangguan. The sloppy old man was so drunk that he didn't even look at it and directly threw all 3 bottles of pills into the table. Long Chen stared at Yin Li and said, "It's only 100,000 points. I have a lot of classes to skip in the future. You can slowly pay it back. Since this pill has already been credited, if I don't pay the points, I will be expelled. I will slowly pay you back in the future." When Yin Li heard this, she looked at the enlightenment pill that Long Chen sent over and finally nodded her head gratefully. This pill was indeed very useful to her. Long Chen looked at Yin Li's serious face. She didn't look like a role model at all. Moreover, he really didn't care about 100,000 points. Chapter 69. Chapter 69, Exploratory Mission. Walking out of the pill pavilion, Yin Li's face turned red. She never thought that she would be teased by a student. However, looking at the enlightenment pill in her hand, she felt very grateful. With this enlightenment pill, she might be able to attempt to inscribe a spirit-grade array formation. Since you have so many points, do you still want to go to the Death Mountain range in a few days? Yin Li suddenly thought of something. Originally, Long Chen had wanted to complete the Broken Spirit Mountain Range mission because of the good rewards. But now, Long Chen had used 300,000 points to complete the mission. There was no need for him to rush to the Broken Spirit Mountain Range. Long Chen, however, shook his head. He needed far more resources than Yin Li. Although his trip to the Fringe was fruitful, Long Chen knew that it was far from enough. 1,000,000 points were enough for anyone in the Spirit Martial Realm to use. However, Long Chen was different. He was only at the 9th level of the Spirit Martial Realm. He could only open up 9 acupoints and condense the power of 9 dragon elephants. As for him, he could open up 36 acupoints and gather the power of 36 dragon-esque elephants to reach the unprecedented level 36 of the Spiritual Martial Realm. Moreover, he cultivated the chaotic Golden Codex. The amount of resources required was beyond imagination. Compared to an ordinary warrior of the Spiritual Martial Realm, the amount of resources required was tens or even hundreds of times more. Of course, why not? I still need more points. Long Chen replied. Seeing that Long Chen didn't refuse, Yin Li felt that Long Chen insisted on completing the mission so that she wouldn't be in a difficult position. The gratitude on her face became even stronger. The two of them then went to the Spirit Medicine Hall. The Spirit Medicines in the Spirit Medicine Hall were only around the 6th grade of Spirit rank, but Long Chen bought a total of 200,000 points. Among them, there were some that could be used to refine mortal-grade medicinal pills, and some that could be used to refine spirit-grade medicinal pills. Long Chen wanted to improve his alchemy skills as quickly as possible. With the legacy of alchemy and the Sovereign's divine will, alchemy was a piece of cake for him. Once his alchemy level improved, it would be a great help for him to improve his strength. For example, the spirit herbs in his possession could only be purchased for about 200 pills with 200,000 points. Moreover, due to the limitations of his alchemy technique, the effects were ordinary. However, if he were to personally refine the pills according to the method of the pill inheritance, he might be able to refine 300 pills. Moreover, the effects of the pills would far surpass those that could be purchased directly. The Qi gathering pill that he had tried before was the best proof. Seeing Long Chen buy so many spirit herbs, Yin Li was also very surprised and asked, although spirit herbs are far cheaper than medicinal pills, whether it's absorption or side effects, they are far greater than medicinal pills. What are you buying so many spirit herbs for? Are you looking down on the Academy's medicinal pills? How about this? You better prepare for the Death Mountain Range mission in the next few days. I'll buy the medicinal pills you need from the pill tower tomorrow. Yanli subconsciously thought that Long Chun wasn't eyeing the pills from the Academy's pill pavilion, but in reality, most of the students in the Academy knew that the grade and effects of the pills in the Academy were ordinary, and there were very few pills that could increase one's cultivation. Most of the students would choose to head to the pill tower to purchase the medicinal pills they needed. After all, the pill tower had almost every type of medicinal pill available. Regardless of whether it was the types or the effects, the pill tower far surpassed the Academy's pill pavilion. Long Chun hesitated for a moment and secretly thought that he was a bit anxious. Now that the Death Mountain Range mission was only a few days away, there wasn't enough time to refine medicinal pills. It would be better to take advantage of these few days to increase his strength. If he could condense the strength of the fifth dragon elephant, it would naturally be better. Long Chun agreed with Yen Li's suggestion and gave all the remaining points to Yen Li. Moreover, he made a list of the medicinal pills he needed. Then he returned to his room once again to cultivate. He's really a cultivation madman. Apart from cultivating, he has nothing else to do. Yen Li stomped her foot, and for some reason, she was slightly angry. She turned around and left. Long Chun naturally didn't know about this. Although he had made up for many of the regrets of his previous life after his rebirth, he also knew that all of this required strength to defend. Rising Sky Pill, 6th grade spirit rank. It's considered a good medicinal pill to increase cultivation in the pill pavilion. It's worth 100,000 points. Long Chun looked at the Rising Sky Pill in his hand and muttered to himself. There were a total of 4 medicinal pills in this bottle, and its effect was probably not inferior to the 30 bottles of 1st to 2nd grade spirit rank medicinal pills that Long Chun had taken yesterday. Immediately after, Long Chun began to take medicinal pills again and tried to open the 5th major acupoint. The medicinal pills were like a torrential flood, violently attacking the meridians in Long Chun's body, and emitted bursts of rumbling sounds on the afternoon of the 2nd day. Yen Li really did take all the medicinal pills on his list. These medicinal pills were all 5th grade spirit rank and above. According to the medicinal pill inheritance, Long Chun understood that these medicinal pills were extremely beneficial for opening the spirit acupoint and condensing the strength of the dragon elephant. When I return from the Death Mountain Range, I have to think of a way to increase my alchemy skills. The price of these medicinal pills is far higher than the medicinal pills I need. Moreover, long-term consumption will have shackles on my future cultivation. Long Chun looked at the medicinal pills in his hand and once again entered into a state of cultivation. Yen Li, who was outside the door, was very puzzled. In her eyes, Long Chun's battle strength had far surpassed many people. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him a genius. However, his efforts were a bit excessive. He was only 16 years old, and it was the time for him to be high-spirited. However, Long Chun seemed to have a calmness and courage that he shouldn't have. He can really endure such a boring cultivation. Yen Li shook her head and returned to her room. Long Chun cultivated day and night. He swallowed elixirs one by one like they were candy. His body was constantly being cleansed by his spiritual power. Streaks of light green splendor struck a spot under his ribs that flickered with a black light. If this cultivation method was used on other people, no matter if it was the body or the state of mind, they wouldn't be able to bear it. However, Long Chun had long been accustomed to craziness in his previous life. When he sat, he was like a stone statue, unable to move. He couldn't even feel the passage of time. More than 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yen Li stood at the door of Long Chun's room with a face full of shock. This was because she had just heard a muffled sound. This was a strange phenomenon caused by the awakening of the Dracophant force. It's only been a few days, and he actually broke through again. Although her eyes were filled with shock, in reality, she had only witnessed Long Chun's 2 breakthroughs. In reality, after coming to the Imperial School, Long Chun had already condensed the strength of 3 Dracophants. He He had also broken through from spiritual martial realm level 2 to spiritual martial realm level 5 in just half a month. Although it's only the strength of 5 Dracophants, in terms of strength, it's comparable to spiritual martial realm level 7. If I use martial skills, even if it's spiritual martial realm level 8, I can still defeat it. Even if it's spiritual martial realm level 9. Long Chun let out a long sigh of relief. In this life, the speed of breaking through had reached a shocking level. However, even if it was him, he couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh when he thought about how he had broken through to spiritual martial realm level 36. Just as Long Chun was about to push open the door and leave, a hurried voice came from the courtyard. Teacher Yinli, we're preparing to leave. Please hurry. Chapter 70. Chapter 70. Milk of the Earth. Seeing Long Chun walk out, Fong Chun narrowed his eyes and sneered in his heart. However, on the surface, he didn't reveal anything as he said, Junior brother, you should hurry up. We are already prepared to depart. I will definitely take care of you on this trip. If it's really dangerous, don't take the risk, Yinli said with concern. Long Chun nodded and stared at Fong Chun. Let's go then. When Fong Chun saw Long Chun's calm appearance, he sneered in his heart. He thought to himself, will he still be like this after entering the Death Mountain range? Not far behind him, Xiang Tian's face was terrifyingly gloomy. As an elementary martial arts instructor, Xiang Tian's status in the academy was not low, and he had been coveting Yin Li's beauty for a long time. Only now did he know that Long Chun was in the same courtyard as Yin Li. He couldn't help but be infuriated. He even thought that Long Chun and Yin Li had an unspeakable relationship. When Fong Chun passed by him, he lowered his voice and said, Do you remember what I said? I want him to never come back. Fong Chun's eyes turned cold as he chuckled sinisterly. Then, Fong Chun and Long Chun walked towards the Death Mountain range, while Xiang Tian walked towards Yin Li. Unfortunately, Yin Li seemed to have turned a blind eye to him. She actually ignored his greeting and turned to leave. Damn it. Facing the sky, he flung his sleeves and left. The Death Spirit Mountain Range was located in the East District of the Academy. The continuous mountain range stretched as far as the eye could see. This mountain range extended directly from the inner part of the Academy to the outer part of the Imperial Capital. In other words, it still wasn't considered the Imperial Capital. Compared to the Bedlam lands, the Death Mountain Range had more students coming and going. After all, killing demonic beasts was the best way to earn points. As for the Fringe, although it was much faster to gain points, it was still risking one's life. Long Chun and Fong Chun arrived one after another. In front of the entrance of the Broken Spirit Mountain, there were 8 young students waiting. Why is a newbie? As soon as Long Chun walked over, the leading young disciple asked in surprise. His eyes were full of contempt as he stared at Long Chun. Instructor Yin Li was the one who found him, so he should be skilled in the Tao of formations. However, if that's the case, we'll have another burden. The Suicide Cliff is also considered to be in the inner region of the mountain range. This makes it even more difficult. Based on Long Chun's age and the clothes he was wearing, the 4 or 5 people were able to deduce when he entered the academy. They immediately started to discuss among themselves. Fong Chun looked at this scene coldly and sneered. Only a tall and sturdy young man with a square face who stood at the back stepped forward and said, It is said that there are many formations in the cave. This little brother might be of great use to them. Why do you have to, little brother, follow behind us? The timid voice of a young girl came from behind the burly youth. The woman's hands were intertwined and her forehead was lowered. Her chin was almost buried in her chest. She was extremely introverted. Long Chun, let's take care of each other. Long Chun stared at the burly young man and extended his hand in a friendly manner. The burly young man laughed and said, Just call me to Zhuang. Since everyone is here, let's go. Although everyone was a little dissatisfied, Long Chun was a student that Yin Li found after all, so they could only accept it. Soon after, They entered the Death Mountain range one after another. Only the young man who just led the group stared at Long Chun fiercely after hearing his name. There was actually a killing intent in his eyes. Xiang Yun, I suggest that the Academy's mission be distributed according to work. If it's distributed according to the number of people, I think it's a little unfair. The young man stared at Long Chun and the introverted woman beside him and said. The implication was that he thought that the two of them would not contribute anything to this trip. The leader Xiang Yun nodded and said, this time, the student's mission to explore the Death Cliff's secret cave will reward 100,000 points and a bottle of Earth Spirit milk. When the time comes, we will vote to distribute it. As for the other instructors' missions, they will all belong to themselves. De Zhuang, who was in front of Long Chun, frowned slightly. But seeing that everyone agreed, he did not say anything. He just turned to Long Chun and the shy woman and said, on the way to the Death Cliff, we will definitely encounter a lot of demonic beasts. We might even encounter 4th or 5th level spirit rank beasts. When the time comes, the two of you must remember to follow behind me. Long Chun smiled and felt that this De Zhuang was a warm-hearted person. However, under the coverage of his divine sense, he also discovered that Xiang Yun and De Zhuang had killing intent towards him. He secretly thought that this trip would not be so simple. On the other side, Long Chun did not expect that the mission reward this time would be so big, especially the Earth Spirit milk, which made him very excited. This thing was born from pure Earth Spirit Qi and had great benefits for improving one's cultivation. However, what Long Chun really cared about was its use in pills. The Earth Spirit milk could be fused with the 9th level Blue Lotus Throne. After that, it only needed a dozen or so spirit herbs to refine the 9th level spirit tempering pill. This was also the reason why Long Chun did not immediately submit the mission to the Alliance when he obtained the 9th level Blue Lotus Throne. He did not expect that the mission reward for exploring the secret cave would be a bottle of Earth Spirit milk. 2 million points could only be exchanged for 20 bottles of 6th level spirit rank pills. If Long Chun took them, he would gain the strength of 2 Dracophants at most. The 9th level spirit tempering pill was a king rank pill. At that time, he could at least gain the strength of 5 to 10 Dracophants at once. Long Chun was determined to get this Earth Spirit milk. You three, why are you walking at the back? If there are demonic beasts rushing out from behind, we can't protect you. Walk at the front. Seeing that they were already a few thousand meters into the mountain range, and that there were no traces of people around, Xiang Yun turned around and shouted at De Zhuang and Long Chun. At this moment, his voice was still a little impolite and full of command. After all, the Broken Spirit Mountain Range did not belong to the Imperial School. If Long Chun and the rest were not willing to obey, he did not mind making them suffer a little. Xiang Yun, one of them was found by the Array Master, and the other was found by the Puppet Master. If you let them walk at the front, what if they encountered demonic beasts? De Zhuang's face darkened when he heard this. The others at the side looked on coldly. Fong Chun sneered and said, it's because of this that they should walk at the front. If anything happens, we'll turn back and help them immediately. No, I can walk at the front, but the two of them can't. De Zhuang objected. As he spoke, he walked towards the front of the group. Just as he passed by Xiang Yun, he saw the shadow of a fist coming towards him. When the two fists collided, there was a sudden gust of wind. De Zhuang was pushed back a few meters, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Chapter 71. Cyanobacterium palestra. Xiang Yun was obviously targeting Long Chun and the other two. De Zhuang was not weak, but he was not Xiang Yun's match. De Zhuang's face was gloomy, but in the end he helplessly said to Long Chun, I'll walk in front with you guys. You two follow behind me. Don't go too fast. De Zhuang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and finally chose to give in. Long Chun took a deep look at Xiang Yun and walked beside De Zhuang and the shy girl without saying a word. After a brief interlude, the group moved forward again and soon encountered the first demonic beast. The demonic beast was nearly 10 meters tall, and its body was covered in light yellow leather armor. Its face was like that of a giant tiger, and its scarlet eyes were staring at everyone. We finally met a demonic beast. I thought we were so lucky that we could walk all the way to the suicide cliff. Xiang Yun and the others were not afraid at all. Instead, they laughed excitedly. De Zhuang immediately protected Long Chun and the shy girl as they retreated. In his eyes, Long Chun and the shy girl were not very strong. The earth-splitting tiger was at least a rank 3 spiritual beast, which was equivalent to a cultivator of the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. With its huge physical strength, it could fight against a cultivator of the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer. If the two of them got close to it, they would be in danger. Xiang Yun sneered, as if he wanted to show off his position as the team leader. He walked forward, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Then, he rushed forward. Roar! The earth-shattering tiger's huge body kept pouncing, but under Xiang Yun's fierce swordsmanship, its flesh and blood exploded. In just over 10 moves, it was killed by a single sword strike. Senior Marshal Brother Xiang's explosive sword art has already been cultivated to the great accomplishment stage. Wherever the sword moves go, it will explode inch by inch. He deserves to be the leader. The earth-shattering tiger was killed in a mere dozen moves. Impressive, impressive. Everyone complimented her, but in their hearts, they were truly fearful of Xiang Yun's strength. Long Chun didn't even look at her. With his current cultivation, he was only at the peak of the 8th or 9th level of the spiritual martial realm. In his eyes, Xiang Yun was like a clown. After retrieving the beast cores, the group continued to move forward. Long Chun and the others continued to walk at the front. A gust of wind whistled from afar. Everyone knew that the suicide cliff was not far away. After Long Chun walked a few steps, he suddenly stopped. The people behind him could not help but be stunned. Fong Chen even directly shouted, "Kid, why did you stop?" Long Chen didn't take him seriously at all. He turned around and rushed towards the bushes on the right. He said calmly, "I'll be right back." De Zhuang was stunned and worried. But just as he was about to rush out, he realized that Long Chun had already disappeared into the forest. Behind him, Xiang Yun's face was gloomy. She said in a low voice, "This idiot, it's fine if he's weak, but he's still causing trouble for us. Fong Chun, go and capture him." During this journey, Xiang Yun had already discovered that Fong Chun seemed to be quite hostile to Long Chun. Now that Long Chun had left, Fong Chun could go and teach him a lesson. If he could kill Long Chun, it would naturally save him a lot of effort. Upon hearing this, Fong Chun coldly smiled and hurriedly agreed. He clearly remembered the disrespect that Long Chun had shown him in the restaurant back then. Fong Chun couldn't wait to chase after Long Chun, as if he was afraid that Long Chun would escape. De Zhuang's face was completely ugly, but he still had a woman to take care of behind him. After thinking about it, he also felt that Long Chun was a little reckless to leave the group like this. For his safety, if Fong Chun brought him back, it would be for his own good. After Fong Chun left, Xiang Yun didn't wait in the same place. Instead, she led the group and continued to walk against the mountain wind towards Suicide Cliff. The wind was getting stronger and faster. A several thousand-meter-long cliff appeared in front of them. 100 meters to their left, there was a huge decaying stone tablet, and the words suicide could be faintly seen. "Let's wait for them here." On the other side, Long Chun followed the light green blood on the ground to a cave. "Ancient viper python, I didn't expect to be so lucky." Long Chun smiled. Just as he walked, he sensed the smell of blood in the air with his strong divine thoughts, and the faint green blood on the ground. Ancient viper python, equivalent to a warrior at level 6 languaging, was about 10 meters long and could spit out poisonous fog. It was very difficult to deal with, and under normal circumstances, even a warrior at level 7 spiritual martial realm would not want to provoke it. The ancient viper python's gallbladder and poisonous fangs were one of the materials for refining the level 9 spirit tempering pill. Now that Long Chun had encountered it, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Long Chen's divine thoughts spread out quickly and rushed directly into the cave. Clear images quickly formed in his mind. Inside the cave, There were eerie white bones and dried blood stained the cave red. In the depths of the cave, there was a dark green giant python that was constantly spitting, and there was a long claw mark on its back. After Long Chun observed for a while, he sneered because he could not only check the cave with his divine thoughts, but also found Fong Chun, who was dozens of meters away, eyeing him covetously. However, Long Chun didn't take Fong Chun seriously at all and walked directly into the cave. He and Fong Chun just had a disagreement, and this person was extremely narrow-minded. If he wanted to kill him today, Long Chun would definitely not let him live. Roar! The ancient viper python immediately sensed Long Chun's aura. After it died in the cave, a fishy smell rushed out, and the billowing poisonous fog instantly dyed the entire cave dark green. Long Chun's right hand shook, and the wind-chanting purple vein sword appeared in his hand. Immediately, thunder roared and electric arcs rolled, making a crackling sound and glaring thunder light. King level sword technique, sword light thunder cut. Whoosh! The glaring sword light poured out like a bolt of lightning and fell into the dark green poisonous fog, making a burst of crackling sound and a burnt smell. The sword light flashed, and the ancient viper python's cry came to an abrupt end. Immediately, Long Chun held his breath and rushed into the cave, only to see the ancient viper python's huge body cut in half by the sword. After taking out the gallbladder and poisonous fangs, Long Chun directly rushed out of the cave. As my strength increases, my mastery of high-level martial arts is getting better and better. Moreover, this ancient viper python strength is not even at the 7th level, and this place is too narrow. Killing it with one sword is nothing, Long Chun muttered to himself. After a few steps, he stared behind an ancient tree and said lightly, "How long are you going to watch?" Fong Chun, who was behind the ancient tree, was stunned. He originally planned to wait for Long Chun to be happy for a while before appearing to kill him, but he didn't expect Long Chun to find him first. Chapter 72. Chapter 72, The Secret of the Cave. Fong Chun did not care about Long Chun killing the ancient green python. After all, when he was looking for Long Chun, he also found the green blood on the ground. Long Chun had only been in the cave for a short period of time. Therefore, he subconsciously thought that the green python was on the verge of death. Long Chun glanced at Fong Chun, who was slowly walking over, and said calmly, "You and I are both students of the academy. You want to kill me just because of a moment of anger?" Fong Chun did not stop walking towards Long Chun when he heard this. He felt that Long Chun wanted to beg him for mercy. Immediately, he laughed loudly and said, "How dare a bumpkin like you be mentioned in the same breath as me? If it were not for the two instructors, I would have definitely beaten you into a cripple." Seeing that Fong Chun didn't have the slightest intention of going back on his word, and instead his killing intent grew even stronger, Long Chun's heart gradually turned cold. The word mercy was never in his dictionary when it came to his enemies. "Then, you can only die," Long Chun said indifferently. Fong Chun, who was approaching him, seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world. He originally thought that Long Chun would directly kneel down and beg for mercy or shout for help. Who would have thought that he would spout such arrogant words before his death? Ignorant! Fong Chun roared and leaped up. The sword in his hand seemed to turn into a rain of swords. Each of the swords was aimed at Long Chun's limbs and chin. It was obvious that he wanted to make Long Chun completely lose his ability to fight and then torture him. Such a ruthless method made Long Chun's eyes turn even colder. His left hand reached out as if it was plucking stars and grabbing the moon, and fell into the rain of swords. King-tier martial skill. Star-plucking finger. Clang! The sound of a sword rang out, and a cold blade appeared between Long Chun's right index finger and middle finger. Fong Chun was only at the early stage of the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm, while Long Chun's assassin was at the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. His strength was comparable to the 7th level of the spiritual martial realm. The difference in strength between the two was close to 2 to 3,000 pounds. With his powerful divine sense and absolute strength, Long Chun easily clamped down on Fong Chen's sword with his fingers. "What this? How'd you do it?" Fong Chen's expression suddenly changed. His eyes were filled with shock, and he felt his mind go blank. Long Chun had actually used 2 fingers to block his sword. How is this possible? You don't need to know. Chong Chen's left hand moved again, and Fong Chun felt a tremendous force coming from the sword in his hand. The webbing between his thumb and forefinger was instantly torn open, dripping with blood. The next moment, the cold light in his hand was already on his neck. "You don't kill me. As long as you let me live, I can tell you a secret. It's about the secret of this secret cave exploration mission." Before Fong Chun died, he was already in a sorry state under his pants. Filth flowed out of his body. He shouted in panic, trying to survive at the last moment. This was the Death Soul mountain range. Once one died and was thrown into the wilderness, not even their bones would be left behind in less than an hour. Secret? About this mission to explore the secret cave? Long Chen's hand paused, and he asked thoughtfully. Fong Chen seemed to have grasped at a life-saving straw. He hurriedly shouted. After the Academy's evaluation, the secret cave was not treated as a land of inheritance. Therefore, they chose to release the mission for the students to explore. But that's not the case, because there's a place in the secret cave that the Academy hasn't explored yet. There's another secret cave in it. Long Chun raised his eyebrows and said lightly, "A cave in a cave." Fong Chun immediately nodded and continued. "Only Xiang Yun and I know this news in the whole team. We learned it from an elder who was in charge of the evaluation that day. This elder's son is an official in the Empire, so he concealed this matter and told my father and Xiang Yun in exchange for his son's meteoric rise. When Long Chun heard this, he believed most of it. However, the long sword in his hand slashed across Fong Chen's throat. Plop! Fong Chen's body fell to the ground. A small crossbow had appeared on the inner side of his right hand. The crossbow was smeared with a black liquid, which was obviously a highly toxic substance. If these stirring words had been spoken by someone else, perhaps the person would have relaxed a little and ended up being ambushed. Unfortunately, not only was Long Chen's mind as calm as water from beginning to end, his powerful divine sense had also clearly captured Fong Chen's every move. When Fong Chun died, Long Chun didn't take out his jade points and elixirs to avoid extra trouble. Instead, he directly threw his body into the cave. Then, Long Chun went directly to the suicide cliff in the direction he came from. In front of the suicide cliff, Xiang Yun and the others all had ugly expressions. Long Chen's sudden departure made them very unhappy. "I don't think we need to wait for him. With his strength, he'll be a burden. It's going to be dark soon. If we can't enter the cave, then we can only wait until tomorrow morning." Just when everyone was impatient, Long Chun slowly walked out of the woods. De Zhuang and the shy woman saw Long Chun return safely and breathed a sigh of relief. On the contrary, Xiang Yun's face darkened and she asked, "Where's Fong Chun? Why didn't he come back with you?" Long Chun didn't answer at all. Xiang Yun was about to attack Long Chun, but the people around her couldn't help but say, "Don't worry so much. At least Fong Chun knows the location of the secret cave. He can come in by himself tomorrow. Let's go in first." Xiang Yun glared fiercely at Long Chun. She secretly thought that Fong Chun was useless and couldn't catch up with Long Chun. Everyone walked to the edge of the cliff, but the shy girl walked in front. She waved her right hand, and 2 snake-shaped puppets appeared in front of everyone. The puppets were more than 10 meters long and as thick as an arm. They were made of some kind of metal and were very tough. Long Chun glanced at them and shook his head. The art of puppetry could only be considered as an unorthodox art. It was worlds apart from the art of alchemy and the art of formations. However, the 2 snake-shaped puppets bit on a hard rock and extended to the bottom of the cliff. Everyone slid down the snake-shaped puppets and then came to a fault in the cliff. The fault was more than 10 meters long and sunken into the cliff. The entrance formation has been opened by the Academy elders. Of the pills and martial arts inside, 70% of them must be handed over to the students. The remaining 3 will be distributed according to the students' contributions, Xiangyan said. Seeing that everyone agreed, they filed in. Although the entrance was small, the space after entering was huge. Longshan also found some formation patterns on the walls that were similar to the ones in the bedlam. However, with the formation inheritance he obtained, he could tell that these formations were very crude. Although the owner of the secret cave knew a lot about formations, he wasn't an expert in them. After Long Chun looked around, his eyes were attracted by a black waste pill in a pile of broken objects in the corner. Ignoring everyone's disdainful looks, Long Chun walked forward and took the waste pill in his hand. He immediately crushed it and put it at the tip of his nose. Chapter 73. Thousand-faced ghost Spider Xiang Yun and the others saw Long Chen's actions, and their eyes were full of disdain. They secretly thought that Long Chun had probably never even seen a spirit-grade pill before. Otherwise, he wouldn't have picked up a useless pill and put it up to his nose. Long Chun didn't care at all because he discovered that this pill was a crack pill. If he guessed correctly, this cave must be related to that genius, and it might even be one of his disciples. This also explained why there were so many formations here. There are a total of 19 stone rooms here, all of which are blocked by formations. We don't know what's inside at all, everyone said after looking around. Of the 19 stone rooms, only the first one had been opened, and it was empty. The remaining rooms were arranged vertically into the depths of the secret cave. The sides of the secret cave were several hundred meters wide, but there was nothing inside, so it was quite spacious. Everyone's eyes quickly fell on Long Chun. After all, Long Chun was invited by instructor Yin Li, and Yin Li was an array instructor. Long Chun didn't waste time. He had a lot of interest in this place, and if he could get a part of the crack pill, then this trip would definitely not be in vain. After all, even if he used points to exchange for a spirit-grade pill, it definitely couldn't compare to a crack pill. Long Chun walked forward, and his right hand landed on the second door. Soon, a light blue silk thread spread out from the stone door like a spider web, making a rustling sound. Golden Jade Spirit Lock Formation, Common Grade 7 Formation. Long Chun shook his head. The person who built this cave mansion probably only practiced alchemy, so the Tao of formations probably wasn't that profound. The surrounding people also casually touched the stone rooms and found that there were lines spreading out from them. Long Chun spread out his divine sense, but didn't immediately open the formation. If it was so easy to open the formation and obtain the pill, then the Academy wouldn't have issued a mission. They could have taken everything the first time they came. From this, it seemed that something troublesome must have happened when the first stone room was opened. Although Long Chun was deep in thought, Xiang Yun, who was beside him, could not wait any longer. He shouted coldly, "Can you open it or not? I don't think this array is strong. Maybe you can just blast it open." Before Long Chun had time to react, he saw Xiang Yun's fist flying out. The cultivation of level 6 languaging was fully displayed. The strength of one strike was more than 6,000 Jin. With a single punch, the entire cave trembled, and the spirit-locking spell formation also trembled. The faint blue threads on the formation also weakened slightly, and it seemed that he would be able to break the formation after a few more hits. Long Chen frowned and said in a deep voice, "You'll attract trouble if you do this, unfortunately." Xiang Yun glanced at him with a sneer, and then continued to bombard the stone door with several punches. When the people around saw that it was not a big deal, they thought that there were many things inside, and could not help but make a move. Only Long Chen frowned. He secretly thought that things were definitely not that simple. Under the cover of his divine sense, he paid attention to every movement in the surroundings. Bang! With a loud bang, a huge stone door suddenly fell down from the entrance behind them, sealing off the entire cave and preventing any light from entering. The moment the surroundings fell into darkness, a blue halo spread out from the top of the cave, and everyone felt as if they were in a blue ocean. Long Chen's divine sense moved, and his expression immediately changed. He pulled De Zhuang and the shy girl behind him to a corner, and he was already holding the long sword in his hand tightly. Rustle, rustle, rustle. At this moment, even if Xiang Yun and the others were idiots, they still felt that something was wrong, especially when the surrounding air gradually became turbid. The halo around them only enveloped a few dozen meters around them, and both sides seemed to have fallen into endless darkness. It was very different from when they first entered. A series of scalp-numbing sounds of armor rubbing against the ground came from the darkness, and everyone became alert. Then, rows of slender and scarlet eyes gradually appeared in the darkness. Soon, when these scarlet eyes appeared in the area of blue light dozens of meters in front of them, they revealed their true appearance. They were actually thousand-eyed ghost spiders. Long Chun now understood why the Academy listed exploring the secret cave as an Academy mission and rewarded so many points. It was all because of these thousand-eyed ghost spiders. The thousand-eyed ghost spiders themselves weren't high ranks, and their strength was only equivalent to the first grade of the spirit rank. However, this creature's vitality was extremely strong, and each thousand-eyed ghost spider had dozens of young ghost spiders as hosts. Once the large ghost spider died, the young ghost spiders would go crazy and be extremely difficult to deal with. Everyone gathered together. These thousand-eyed ghost spiders aren't high ranks. We can easily deal with them. At this moment, Xiang Yun shouted loudly. Long Chun secretly thought that this person only had strength, but his experience in battle was frighteningly low. If he was allowed to continue like this, he would probably cause many people to die. This mission was accepted by so many of them, and if they cooperated well, it was completely possible to complete it. These ghost spiders couldn't be killed at all. The more they killed, the more dangerous it would be for them. De Zhuang, you two block them first. I'll undo the formation of this door. Remember, try not to kill the ghost spiders, just delay them. Long Chun saw that Xiang Yun actually led people to attack directly and attracted the attention of most of the ghost spiders. So he quickly said, although he wanted to warn them, these guys probably wouldn't listen at all. It was better to take this opportunity to open a stone door. After entering, they would naturally be safe for a short period of time. Okay, Brother Long Chun, don't worry. De Zhuang stepped forward, and suddenly a 9-ringed long saber appeared in his hand. The shy woman on the side also moved her right hand, and 3 wolf-shaped puppets appeared in front of her. Long Chun didn't hesitate anymore. His right hand moved quickly on the stone door, and the blue silk threads were dimming at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the other hand, Xiang Yun and others relied on their spiritual martial realm level 4 cultivation to kill the ghost spiders as if they were cutting vegetables. In just a dozen breaths, they actually killed nearly 10 ghost spiders. However, they didn't have time to be happy because they gradually found that around the dead ghost spiders, there were more young ghost spiders. The strength of these ghost spiders was only comparable to mortal martial realm level 9, but there were nearly 100 of them. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Looking at the thousand-eyed ghost spiders that constantly emerged from the darkness, they only felt their scalps tingling. If they continued to kill like this, they were afraid that they would directly be drowned in the tide of countless ghost spiders. It's open. Long Chun opened the stone room. You guys quickly come over and close your eyes for a while. Just as everyone was about to despair, De Zhuang's voice sounded. He and the shy woman controlled the puppets and retreated to the stone room behind them. Everyone's face was suddenly overjoyed. They quickly retreated and rushed to the front of the stone room where the 3 people were. With their powerful strength, the thousand-eyed ghost spiders had no way to stop them. Chapter 74. Profit Distribution Zila Zila. When the sound of blades cutting through iron and stone entered everyone's ears, they only felt their scalps go numb. Rapid breathing, accompanied by the undulating heartbeat, sounded in the stone room. With the exception of Long Chun, everyone besides Xiang Yun had a gloomy expression on their faces, as though they had just survived a disaster. Even De Zhuang and De Zhuang, who were standing at the side, let out a long sigh of relief. They shuddered at the thought of the densely packed spiders outside. At this moment, the stone door was closed again and the array was activated. Long Chun had a Dominator-level spirit sense and a heaven-defying array inheritance. The combination of the two allowed him to control ordinary spirit-level arrays. This mortal-level array was nothing in front of him. Just as everyone gradually calmed down, Long Chun had already walked around. The stone room was only about 20 to 30 meters wide, and there were many pots placed around. After scanning the area with his divine telekinesis, Long Chun did not discover any special formations or dangers, so he directly took down a dark green clay jar from a dusty, dust-covered platform. Opening the wax on the pot, a refreshing fragrance spread out, immediately filling the entire stone room. A second Great Spirit level pill. There are cracks on it. Long Chun suddenly understood. It seemed that the owner of this place was obsessed with alchemy. Most of the stone rooms here were filled with alchemy. Of course, there were many spirit herbs and other miscellaneous items, but these things had already turned to dust. Only the sealed pill remained. According to the cracks on it, Long Chun was completely sure that the owner of this place should be the disciple of Gue Yuan. Long Chun couldn't help but smile. He had obtained the inheritance of Gue Yuan's alchemy array, and now he had actually entered his disciple's cave. Perhaps everything had been predestined, or perhaps if he hadn't killed Li Tian, this place would have been another opportunity for Li Tian. Karma alternated. Long Chun felt that although he had been reborn, although he had taken the initiative step by step, there were many changes. Just as Long Chun was lost in thought, the other people at the door also smelled the pill fragrance. From afar, they saw the pill in Long Chun's hand and immediately became overjoyed. As for the danger outside the door, he had completely forgotten about it. Everyone tentatively picked up the bottles one by one. Immediately, their faces glowed red. Even the lowest grade spirit medicine is first grade spirit medicine. This spirit medicine costs at least 20,000 points on the second floor. This is only the first room. We can freely distribute 30% of this exploration mission. In other words, each of us will be able to get a spirit grade pill. Everyone felt like they had hit the jackpot. After all, a spirit grade gem was equivalent to 20,000 points. Furthermore, they still had to complete missions from the academy and instructors. As such, the rewards from exploring the secret cave were quite astonishing. Cough, cough. Just as everyone was extremely excited, Xiang Yun coughed a few times. When everyone's attention was focused, she said in a serious voice, "Take out all the resources in this stone room. We will remove 70% of the resources that need to be handed over and distribute them accordingly." Although everyone was reluctant to part with the medicinal pills in their hands, there was nothing wrong with Xiang Yun's words. In particular, his cultivation made everyone fearful. In less than a few minutes, everyone had collected a total of 15 spirit-grade medicinal pills, 3 mortal-grade 9 martial skills, and 2 spirit-grade 1 martial skills. Although there were many bottles and jars here, many of them had completely turned into useless pills due to time. 15 medicinal pills. If we hand in 10, there will be 5 left. After that, there will be more than a dozen stone rooms. In other words, each of us can get a dozen to 20 spirit-grade medicinal pills. Heavens, this is only a high-level team mission. We can actually get so many rewards. After everyone calculated, they were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Only Long Chun shook his head. This place was at the front of the formation and was also the closest place to the cave entrance. Having 15 perfectly preserved medicinal pills was already quite a lot. After that, the stone rooms wouldn't be so lucky. Wanting everyone to get a dozen to 20 medicinal pills was simply a dream. Xiang Yun placed all the medicinal pills on a stone table. With a wave of her right hand, she put away the 10 medicinal pills and 2 martial skills, leaving only 5 medicinal pills in front of her. Shortly after, she looked at Long Chun and said indifferently, "Hand over the medicinal pill in your hand. We'll start distributing it." Long Chun's eyes suddenly narrowed and took a deep look at Xiang Yun. Apart from having a higher cultivation, this person was simply stupid. Now that they were safe, he actually put on the airs of captain, especially those medicinal pills and martial skills. When the time came, the academy wouldn't be able to check after completing the mission. Even if he coveted some, no one would know. Long Chun smiled and casually threw the medicinal pill that only had 30% medicinal strength left on the table. He didn't care about this kind of medicinal pill. There were 6 medicinal pills on the table. 3 of them were mortal grade 9, 2 were spirit grade 2, and 1 was spirit grade 1. You guys divide these 5 medicinal pills first. In the next stone room, you could distribute them to the others. Xiang Yin didn't even look at Long Chun. In her eyes, although Long Chun had the power of formations, his cultivation wasn't enough. He wasn't a threat at all. The medicinal pill in her hand was spirit grade 2, and it still had 80% to 90% of its medicinal strength. As for the other 5, she directly distributed them to the people behind her. Only De Zhuang's group and Long Chun didn't get any. De Zhuang's face suddenly darkened. He angrily walked to the front and shouted, "Xiang Yin, don't go too far. Xiao Ju and I didn't get any medicinal pills. If it wasn't for Brother Long Chun who broke the formation on the stone door, I'm afraid you guys wouldn't even be alive. These medicinal pills must be given to him first. The medicinal pills should be given to Long Chun first." The timid Xiao Ju also stood behind De Zhuang and whispered. Xiang Yin and the others were quite disdainful. After all, in their eyes, Long Chun and the girl's cultivation were at the bottom. Naturally, the medicinal pills they just got would not be given to them first. The two's words were directly ignored by everyone. Instead, Long Chun walked to the front and said, "Give the 2 spirit-grade medicinal pills to De Zhuang and Xiao Ju first. If it wasn't for the 2 of them who called you in first, I'm afraid you guys would be dead." As soon as Long Chun spoke, everyone's face darkened. The person behind Xiang Yin directly shouted coldly, "You don't have the right to speak here. It's not up to you to decide how to distribute the pills." Oh, Long Chen's eyes turned cold. He casually took 2 steps back and casually patted the stone door with his right hand. Then, the stone door slowly opened. "I don't know what will happen if I open the stone door now. And the next stone door, you guys should hammer it open yourself. Maybe next time, if you're lucky, there won't be any ghost spiders." Chapter 75. Who was the boss? Long Chen's actions immediately caused everyone's expression to change. The densely packed ghost spiders outside had caused everyone to feel a lingering fear. If Long Chen had really opened the stone door, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "Wait!" Xiang Yun's face darkened, and she hurriedly shouted. She thought to herself that many stone doors later had formations, and there were still many places where the Long Chen would be used. It was really unwise to fall out with him at this moment. However, his younger brother and that slut, Miao Yin, had personally begged him to let Long Chen stay here forever. It seemed that he could only wait until he left to find a way to separate everyone and create an opportunity to be alone with him. Of course, Long Chen only felt that Xiang Yun was targeting him, but he didn't know that he was the brother of the strong young man who was with Miao Yin that day. Xiang Yun took a deep look at Long Chen and finally gave the 2 spirit grade pills to De Zhuang and Xiao Ju. "This pill should be given to you. If you hadn't opened the formation at the first moment, I'm afraid we would all have died outside." De Zhuang directly walked in front of Long Chen and insisted on handing the 2nd-grade spiritual medicine to Long Chen. When Long Chen saw De Zhuang's insistence, he shook his head and accepted it helplessly. Then, his right hand continued to open the stone door. Through his divine sense, he knew that the ghost spiders outside had retreated. As long as there were no more strange movements, they should be safe for the time being. Everyone was scared half to death by Long Chen's actions. Seeing that there were no ghost spiders outside, they breathed a sigh of relief. Only Xiang Yin and a few people behind her had ashen faces. They felt that they had been played by Long Chen. Seeing Long Chen and the other 2 leave first, Xiang Yin said in a deep voice, Find an opportunity to teach him a lesson and let him know who's the boss now. He just needs to open the door properly. All right. After he opened the door, you guys will stop De Zhuang and his companion. He and I will enter the stone room first. I will teach him a lesson. I guarantee that he will obediently open the door for us. The young man felt extremely displeased when he recalled that the spirit-grade medicinal pill in his hand was now in Xiao Ju's hands. Outside the door, Long Chen's lips curled into a faint smile. He had not retracted his spiritual force, so he had heard every word of their conversation clearly. Looks like we can't go on like this. Otherwise, they'll always cause some trouble. Long Chen muttered to himself. The few of them walked to the front of the second stone room. Xiang Yun and the others stood slightly sideways on both sides of the stone door. Once Long Chen opened the stone door, they would immediately turn back to block De Zhuang and his companion. Long Chen acted as if he didn't see anything. He opened the door after a dozen breaths. Now, the moment the stone door opened, a gust of wind came from behind Long Chen, trying to force him into the stone room. Long Chen sneered, but did not attack directly. Instead, he pulled the person behind him into the stone room. What are you doing? De Zhuang and his companions' expressions suddenly changed, and they hurriedly shouted. However, just as the two of them moved, they were immediately stopped by Xiang Yun and the others. Xiang Yun's cultivation was level 6 languaging, and she directly pressed De Zhuang against the wall. Then she said fiercely, "We're just teaching him a lesson. You better know your place, or else." Everyone sneered. In their eyes, Long Chen and his companion's opposition to Xiang Yun was tantamount to throwing an egg at a rock. If Xiang Yun did not have any scruples, it would be easy to kill the three of them directly. Boom, boom. A series of muffled sounds came from the stone room. Xiang Yun and the others immediately laughed. De Zhuang and his companions' faces were ashen, and they clenched their fists tightly. They felt that Long Chen must have suffered a great loss. After a while, the stone door slowly opened. Everyone was suddenly stunned, because the person at the door was Long Chen. Long Chen had a smile on his face, and he did not look like he was injured. Everyone let go of De Zhuang and his companion, and hurriedly looked into the stone room. They saw the young man at level 4 spiritual martial realm curled up in the corner, trembling. His originally clean face was swollen like a pig's head. Long Chen, what are you doing? We're all here to complete the task together. How can you attack your own people? Xiang Yun's face was gloomy, and she actually retaliated immediately. At this moment, even Long Chen was a little angry, and he said coldly, "My patience is limited. How dare you talk to me like that?" Xiang Yun heard him and immediately became furious. "Stop arguing. Let's go into the stone room. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if the ghost spiders are attracted." The people behind Xiang Yun quickly winked at her. Xiang Yun immediately understood. As long as they entered the stone room and did not give Long Chen a chance to open the stone door, the three of them would be trampled on by them. Xiang Yun took a deep breath and walked into the stone room with everyone. Long Chen said to De Zhuang and his companion, "You two stay outside first. I'll go in and talk to them." De Zhuang immediately refused. "No, the three of us can just leave. We don't want to do this task anymore. We'd like to see how they're going to complete it." Senior De Zhuang is right. The three of us were personally selected by the mentor. I don't think they'd dare to kill us. We'll just find a way to leave. Long Chen shook his head. He was very curious about the secret cave, and he had not seen what was in the secret cave that Fang Chun said. Now is not the time to leave. Regardless of the two's dissuasion, Long Chen directly turned and entered the stone room. Then, he actually closed the stone door himself. In the stone room, Xiang Yun's face suddenly became ferocious. He did not expect that Long Chen would really come in like this. "Kid, today I'll teach you how to be a person. Later, you'd better obediently open the door. Otherwise, you'll have a good time." Xiang Yun gave a look, and the four people behind him immediately rushed out. In his opinion, Long Chen was at most spiritual martial realm level 2. There was no need for him to do anything. Seeing the four people rushing out, Long Chen said lightly, "Today, I really have to teach you how to be a person. It's better for everyone if you know your place." When Xiang Yun heard Long Chen's words, he swayed back and forth. The four people behind him were at least at spiritual martial realm level 4. Where did Long Chen get the guts to say such big words? But soon, his laughter came to an abrupt end. He saw the four people coming out one after another. Long Chen actually used two of his fingers as a sword. His body was as graceful as lightning. Every time his fingers landed, a person would fly out and spit out blood. Bang, 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 bang. From muffled sounds came out a row. The four people directly hit the wall. Their pale faces were full of shock because Long Chen actually directly crushed them with absolute strength. This meant that Long Chen's cultivation was far higher than theirs. It was very likely that he had already reached level 6 languaging. Xiang Yun raised his eyebrows and his face slowly darkened. He said in a deep voice, "I now acknowledge your strength. But even so, it's still not enough. If you admit your mistake, we can still complete the task together. Otherwise, admit my mistake?" Long Chen looked down at Xiang Yun, and a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 76. Xiang Yun's expression was frosty as she clenched her weapon tightly. She charged straight at Long Chen, and the phantoms of the dragon elephants behind her soared into the sky. The 6 dragon elephants roared continuously. The cultivation of level 6 languaging was unleashed to its fullest potential, and its powerful strength caused gusts of strong wind to swirl backward. Long Chen stood motionless in the same place. His right hand sword fingers moved again, producing a whistling sound out of thin air. Waves of air spread out with him as the center. It was as if a stone had been thrown into a lake, creating layers of ripples. At the same time, 5 Dracophant phantoms burst out. 5th level of the spiritual martial realm? However, his battle prowess is comparable to a 6th layer cultivator. He is quite powerful, but compared to me, he is still far from enough. The crowd was surprised at first. They hadn't thought that Long Chen would be at the 5th level of the Ling Qi layer at such a young age. But soon after, they let out a sigh of relief. This was because Xiang Yun was level 6 languaging. In other words, there was a difference of 500 kilograms between the two of them. There was no more suspense in this battle. Xiang Yun seemed to have the same thoughts as well. As he gazed at Long Chen's sword fingers, he felt that Long Chen was an idiot. Long Chen actually intended to use his fingers to forcefully receive his sword strike. This was simply self-mutilation. Clang! Xiang Yun did not even bother to use any martial arts techniques, and directly slashed towards Long Chen's right-hand sword finger. Everyone seemed to have seen the scene of blood spurting out, and they couldn't help but shake their heads. Clang! Wong! However, it was a pity that it wasn't a blood-curdling scream that was heard. Instead, it was a clear and melodious sound of a sword. Long Chen's sword finger had actually reached the sword's body in a very ingenious manner. A vast force surged out crazily. Xiang Yun's originally mocking expression instantly changed. She immediately let go of the sword in her hand. The sword flew dozens of meters away and stabbed straight into the ground. Cracks actually appeared on it. Aren't you at the 5th level of the spirit martial realm? Xiang Yun looked at her paralyzed right hand and exclaimed. If he hadn't let go of the sword in time, his entire arm would have been broken. The power that came from Long Chen's finger was still far beyond level 5 of the spiritual martial realm, and even beyond level 6 languaging. It was not something that he could withstand. If that was all there was to it, it would have been fine. But how did Long Chen's pair of sword-like fingers land on his sword? Just how accurate was his judgment? Just how profound was his swordsmanship? For a moment, Xiang Yun's entire body was drenched in cold sweat, and she felt the hair on her back stand up. Even though he was at level 6 languaging, he was still no match for Long Chen. If he didn't have scruples and didn't kill Long Chen, he would have suffered the consequences of his own actions at this moment. This made Xiang Yun feel lucky in her heart, and she even fiercely cursed Miao Yin and his idiot brother. Do you still want to teach me how to be a person? Longchen naturally didn't know about Xiang Yun's thoughts. If he had known that Xiang Yun wanted to kill him because of Miao Yin, Longchen would have killed Xiang Yun long ago. Xiang Yun and a few others suddenly quivered. At this moment, even an idiot could see that Longchen was the real boss. Along the way, others were too lazy to care about it. Even Xiang Yun, who was at level 6 languaging, was no match for him. With this kind of cultivation, he could at least become an intermediate student, right? No, whatever you say for this mission is what it is. You could take 20% of the elixirs that we get. 10% is enough for us? Yes, and the Academy's mission rewards are all yours. We have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive us. Everyone was in a cold sweat. They secretly thought that it was fortunate that they were all students found by the mentors. Longchen shouldn't be willing to find trouble for himself. Otherwise, Longchen could easily crush them in this breaking spirit mountain. Don't talk about the mission. Even their lives were a problem. Xiangyan also squeezed out a smile very awkwardly. Looking at the long sword that was full of cracks on the ground, he cupped his fist to Longchen and said, I hope that you will forgive us. Next, we will complete the mission obediently. We will all listen to you. Longchen nodded and said, the elixirs on the 3rd floor are still divided equally, but De Zhuang and Xiao Zhu got it first, and your elixirs are all confiscated and given to De Zhuang. Is there a problem? Longchen narrowed his eyes and stared at Xiangyan deeply. Xiangyan suddenly trembled and quickly shouted, No problem, absolutely no problem. Longchen nodded and opened the stone room's door. The moment the stone door opened, De Zhuang, Xiao Zhu, and the 3 giant wolf puppets rushed in with a ferocious aura. Brother Longchen, are you all right? De Zhuang looked like he was going to risk it all, but his voice was getting softer and softer because the scene in front of him was too different for what he imagined. Longchen was immaculately dressed and stood in front of him without a speck of dust. The others were all covered in dust and lying on the ground in a sorry state. Even Xiangyun's face was drooping like a bitter gourd. There was even blood dripping from the web between her thumb and index finger on her right hand. What's going on? Could it be that the 4 of you found your conscience and helped Brother Longchen fight with Xiangyun? De Zhuang was at a loss. The surrounding people smiled wryly. Xiangyun was even more nimble as he hurriedly stepped forward. With a wave of his left hand, a bottle of common grade, 9 healing medicinal pills appeared in his hand, and he delivered it to De Zhuang. De Zhuang and Xiao Zhu were both stunned. What's going on? What's Xiangyun doing? Xiangyun's expression was a little awkward. She smiled bitterly and said, Please forgive me for what happened before. This healing pill is my apology to you. I'll also give you the rest of the pills as an apology. Xiangyun's words completely stunned De Zhuang. Xiangyun, who was at level 6 languaging, was actually so polite to him. Since he's giving it to you, just take it. Collect all the resources in this place. We'll open all the rooms as quickly as possible, Longchen said with a faint smile. Since Xiangyun was so tactful, he didn't want to waste any more time on him. De Zhuang took a deep look at Longchen before taking the healing pill. Then, everyone quickly stood up and began to sweep through the 2nd stone room. Next, I'll open 3 stone rooms at a time. We'll search for resources in groups of 3. Be careful. There should be some trouble in this place. Otherwise, the Academy wouldn't have released this place as a mission and emptied it the first time we entered, Longchen reminded. Everyone felt that it was quite reasonable. Then, Longchen opened 3 stone rooms at a time. Everyone split into 3 groups and began their search. The reality was just as Longchen said. When the stone rooms were opened, many spirit level 3 to level 6 demonic beasts appeared on the ground. They were all very difficult to deal with. The appearance of the demonic beasts made the ghost spiders appear from time to time. Everyone could only temporarily hide in the stone rooms. It really wasted a lot of time and was extremely troublesome. Everyone now knew why the Mystic Cave Academy didn't mind the resources themselves. The original day's work had been increased to 7 days. Chapter 77. Suzaku Fire Cloud Cauldron in 7 days. They had collected nearly 100 martial skill books and nearly 200 elixirs. Among them, there were nearly 100 spirit-grade elixirs. Even if they could only obtain 30% of such a harvest, it was still very rich. Since the mission is completed, let's return to the academy, Xiangyan said first. Everyone nodded. Ever since Long Chun became the team leader, everyone's relationship had become much more harmonious. With Long Chun as their absolute combat power, no one dared to act rashly. Long Chun looked deeply at Xiangyan and said indifferently, "You guys go out first. I still have some things to do." Xiangyan's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She secretly thought that Long Chun had probably already discovered the existence of the cave within the cave. Did Fong Chun tell him? And he discovered it himself. Xiangyan and Fong Chun had a tacit understanding when they saw the news about the cave in the cave. Now that she knew about Long Chun's cultivation, Xiangyan even felt that Fong Chun might have met with a mishap. Thinking of this, Xiangyan didn't dare to say anything more. She quickly nodded and said, "Then let's go out first and wait for you at the top of the cliff. Everyone, let's go." No one thought too much about it. De Zhuang turned around and said to Long Chun, "There's something strange about this place. If there's anything, come out quickly. We'll help you." Long Chun nodded. He quickly opened the formation that sealed the entrance of the cave and sent everyone out. Then, he activated the formation again to completely seal the entrance of the cave. "Let me see what's in this cave." Long Chun slowly walked towards the wall in the darkness. Using his spiritual will, it was as bright as day. Soon, he arrived at a section of the wall that was scarlet red in color. There was nothing special about this vault, but there were a few slender light green plants growing on it. Under normal circumstances, no one would notice it, and even if they did, they wouldn't care. However, Long Chun, who possessed the legacy of alchemy, knew that it was called the memory returning grass. Although it was only a mediocre spirit herb, it had a special characteristic, which was that it could be used to memorize formations. Long Chun's right hand pressed down on the top and the end of the remembrance grass at the same time, and then he quickly let go. The long remembrance grass contracted rapidly from head to tail and then connected to the broken part of the wall. Finally, it twisted and climbed, and a moment later, it turned into a totem. The intertwining light green strips were the bones, and the branches and leaves were the feathers. They actually formed a vermilion bird that was wreathed in flames. The moment the totem appeared, the broken part of the crimson wall actually flashed with a faint blue light. The blue light became more and more intense, and the wall actually split open to form a passageway that was wide enough for several people. Vermilion bird? Long Chun stepped into the passageway. The surrounding air was moist and slightly smelly. His mind was rapidly searching for the information regarding the vermilion bird in the inheritance left behind by the ghost. Could it be the vermilion bird firecloud cauldron? Immediately, Long Chun's eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but quicken his steps. The vermilion bird firecloud cauldron was one of the 4 divine cauldrons that the ghost refined with his knowledge of alchemy. It was rumored that the vermilion bird's fire was the foundation, and the divine bird skull was the cauldron's body. There were also 999 types of formations inside. Other than the vermilion bird firecloud cauldron, he also refined the azure dragon spirit rain cauldron, white tiger longevity cauldron, and black tortoise overflowing water cauldron. According to the inheritance in his mind, if the 4 cauldrons were gathered together, they could refine immortal grade pills. Immortal grade pills, those were pills that even dominators yearned for in their dreams. King grade, emperor grade, divine grade, saint grade, immortal grade. Even though Long Chun had reached the dominator realm in his previous life, he had never heard of anyone who could refine immortal grade pills. The people at the peak of alchemy in the world could only refine divine grade 9 pills. Suppressing his excitement, Long Chun walked through the passageway and turned several times. His footsteps suddenly slowed down because the stench ahead was getting thicker and thicker, and he also gradually saw a few scattered ghost spiders. After dozens of breaths, his gaze suddenly scattered, The passageway that was originally several people walking side by side actually turned into an extremely spacious area after turning a corner. If Long Chen's guess was correct, at this moment, he was already several thousand meters deep into the cliff. Although it was an extremely spacious area, Long Chen also saw a scene that made his scalp go numb, because this was actually the nest of the ghost spiders. Looking up, there were layers of ghost spiders lying on top of the densely packed stone walls. When their scarlet eyes blinked, it actually dyed the cave with a layer of red light. Fortunately, these ghost spiders seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep, and Long Chen also immediately found what he needed, which was a huge cauldron in the center of the spacious area in front of him. This cauldron was small at the top and wide at the bottom. The mouth of the cauldron was like a bird's beak, and the two cauldron ears were extremely smooth and outlined, not square. Especially, the bottom of the cauldron actually only had 2 legs. The world's huge cauldrons all had 3 legs, and perhaps this was the only cauldron with 2 legs. The surface of the cauldron was completely scarlet, carved by a cloud of fire. Countless inscriptions covered it, making people who looked at it feel as if they had fallen into a fiery abyss. Even though Long Chen stared at it for a long time, his eyes unexpectedly couldn't help but ache endlessly, as if they were being burned by the scorching sun. This place actually has a vermilion bird cauldron. With this cauldron, the path of medicinal pills will be even more open, Long Chen secretly said in his heart. Now, with his powerful divine sense combined with the pill Tao inheritance, he could barely refine a first or second grade spirit rank medicinal pill, and even having 1 crack was already not bad. However, with his cauldron, he was confident that he could refine a 4th grade spirit rank medicinal pill and even have 3 cracks. 3 cracks were equivalent to 30% of the medicinal properties, and it was enough to see how miraculous the vermilion bird cauldron was. Taking a deep breath, Long Chen not only didn't lose his mind due to excitement, but instead became calmer. If Xiang Yun and the others were here, perhaps with just a glance at the vermilion bird cauldron, their minds would be captivated, and they would recklessly rush up to seize it. Treasures could confuse people's minds. It had been so since ancient times. There are too many ghost spiders here, and there is no place to stay. Relying on the advantage of the movement technique, the success rate is only 30%. Once the ghost spiders are awakened, unless one has the cultivation of a soul formation cultivator, there is absolutely no chance of survival. Moreover, if there is something inside this cauldron, then I will definitely die. If I want to obtain this thing, the surest plan is to lure all the ghost spiders out, set up a formation, and then kill my way in before the ghost spiders return and seize the cauldron. Long Chen slowly retreated. His eyes were like torches as he forcibly imprinted the surrounding scene in his mind and found 3 places to set up the formation. Only in this way could he buy 30 breaths of time to leave. Otherwise, once he returned to the cave to retrieve the cauldron, only death would await him if the ghost spiders sealed the cave entrance in the narrow passageway. Even if he had many methods, he couldn't kill his way out of the endless ghost spiders and could only rely on the help of the formation. Use the spirit rank medicinal pill as the foundation of the formation. Set up a formation every 100 meters 10 steps away from the cave entrance, and 3 formations are the limit. Otherwise, I can't lure them to the leftmost side of the stone room and buy 30 breaths of time. As Long Chen spoke, his body moved, and a wound appeared on his hand at an unknown time. Drops of blood flowed from the cave entrance to the leftmost side of the stone room. Fortunately, the ghost spider's ranks aren't high. 3 first-grade spirit rank, piercing earth-type formations should be enough. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.